don't need a cape just to help someone win. Do something simple, do something true. Make a sandwich for a friend, hold the door for someone too. Facts still matter, it starts with you. Check on your neighbor, share what you can do. One small action turns into a wave. Do something today, be the change that you crave. Facts still matter, it starts with you. Facts still matter, it starts with you.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, friends. Welcome to Throat Punch Thursday. Glad you're here. We know you have many choices to make every single day, and we are super grateful you choose to spend some time with us, so thank you. You know the drill. Tapping is clapping, liking is loving, sharing is caring. Don't forget there's gifting goals today that helps us get to and stay on the FYP. We appreciate your support. Please consider joining our team. Do that every day. It helps you, it helps us stay relevant. Please comment, please like, please share, please repost. Also, don't forget, we are still crowdfunding towards the Do Something Tour. The tour kicked off officially last weekend with the No Kings protest. There'll be various events over the course of the summer. Might be traveling some places via the air. The ultimate tour itself starts at the end of August, and then will be 2 months worth leading up to Election Day. If you want to participate and you want to support us, the best way to do that is at the various pay apps, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, all at Facts Still Matter. So thank you. Head on over to the link tree that's in my bio. There you'll find numerous resources, including a link to the Discord. If you've not yet joined our Discord, we encourage you to please consider joining. It's sort of the hub of all of our information, and it's a great place to connect community. We've got mutual aid resources. We've got mental health resources, all kinds of things. So head on over there, check that out. Also, you'll find a link to the merch store. It's Facts HQ or at factsstillmatter.site. A lot of really cool merchandise in the store. Please go check it out and consider subscribing there. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. So a lot of things to cover today. I do want to go back and talk about the Birthright Citizens case. There's a lot to unpack there. And there's a person I follow on Instagram and TikTok, SCOTUS blog. I really like the way that she reports it. We'll probably just play some sound from her to talk about. Also, again, need to discuss the speech last night. So it's interesting. I'll play some of the highlights today, but I watch it on C-SPAN, and usually at the end of the C-SPAN show, they'll have call-in lines. So I immediately dialed. I got in the queue eventually, and I'm listening. So they have a Republican line, they have an independent line, and they have a Democrat line. And I usually try to call in on the independent line because you can get through. I've done this numerous times. But last night was interesting because I'm listening. I'm like 10th in line, and I'm listening to people calling in on the Republican line. And I'm thinking, are we watching the same fucking speech? Because all I kept hearing, I'm listening, I'm like 10th in line, fucking speech. Because all I kept hearing, and one person was from New Jersey, one person was from Pennsylvania, one person was from Texas, one person was from Florida. And they all kept saying that, you know, I'm so proud of our president. He's keeping us safe from terrorist threats in the world. You know, he's prioritizing America first. He's delivering on every single promise. I had 12 things that I wanted to say, and then I finally pivoted, and I'm like, did we watch the same speech? For the president to sit there and tell the American public that we're the hottest country in the world and that there's no inflation? I'm listening to that. I'm like, what the fuck are we watching? What are we listening to? And it just reminds me, because of course we do this every single day, that speech last night was for one audience and one audience alone, and that was him. He was the audience. He was giving that speech to himself. Because, you know, if we fact check that 19-minute speech, there's like thousands of lies that he told. So I'm going to play some of the sound to that. I mentioned yesterday I want to talk about Spotify because there's this interesting reporting about how the the digital download service has really changed the music industry. Thank you, and we can go back to the days of Napster, but it's really criminal. And then there's that antitrust suit or the monopoly suit against Ticketmaster and the whole nine yards. So artists getting ripped off, and I bring up artists because I had the pleasure of attending an art show, my son's first art show last night, and it was fabulous to watch. It's interesting to see all of his art up on the wall. And I've seen the evolution of his art over the course of his life. And a lot of the art he did when he was struggling with substance use, alcohol in particular. So you can see the evolution of his artwork. And it was so great. A lot of people turned out. It was a successful event for him. I'm really proud of you, man. I know you're probably listening this morning. You know how much I love you and super proud of you. And there's more to come in that. So it was really, really cool. So I'm watching that. I get to experience that. And then I'm thinking, the world goes. The world runs around us, and we've got things that we really need to be prioritizing. So when I called in, I talked about that. I said, we want to listen to the president gaslight us. Meanwhile, Americans are struggling. Meanwhile, we've got troops that are being deployed. Meanwhile, we're struggling with basic needs. So the question then was asked, what if we treated healthcare like defense spending? So I'm going to break that down for you today. What that would look like. I'm like, I did some research with the Kaiser Family Foundation, the Congressional Budget Office, and things like that, and kind of compiled a little summary to say, what if we spent half what we spend currently on defense? We would still be the number one defense spender in the world, without question. And actually, the next 7 or 8 are our allies. And what would that look like to the American healthcare system? So we'll break that down. So again, thank you guys for being here. Tapping is clapping, liking is loving, and sharing is caring. So why don't we start with some of the highlights from the speech last night? This one in particular really bothered me, okay? But you'll understand why.
The United States has never been better prepared economically to confront this threat. You all know that. We built the strongest economy in history. We're going through it right now, the strongest in history. In 1 year, we've taken a dead and crippled country. I hate to say that, but we were a dead and crippled country after the last administration and made it the hottest country anywhere in the world by far with no inflation, records.
Okay, I know there's some MAGA in here this morning, and because you show up every day, and I appreciate that. And maybe some of the stuff that we talk about is seeking through, but the president just told you that there's no inflation. Obviously, you know that that's not true. Obviously, you know it's not true. He's been saying that forever. So are you ever going to call him out? Ever? Are you ever going to call him out for these lies?
After the last administration and made it the hottest country anywhere in the world by far with no inflation.
What?
Record-setting investments coming into the United States.
No evidence of these record-setting investments. No evidence of that whatsoever. The claim about $18 trillion, no evidence.
States over $18 trillion.
None.
And the highest stock market ever with 53 all-time record highs in just 1 year.
But the Dow.
It all positioned us to get rid of a cancer that has long simmered. It's known as the nuclear Iran, and they didn't know what was coming.
Okay. Yeah. So let's just kind of fact check a little bit about that, shall we? Hang on one second. I went through that. I'm thinking, are you fucking kidding me? Let me see if I can find it. Hang on a second. Okay, so some of the highlights. He said that there's no inflation. I don't know how. I don't know how. I don't even know how to say it. We obviously know inflation is up. We have 2.6 or 2.7%, I think is the number. I think I have the stats here. I pulled the information. Hang on one sec. I thought I did. I thought I pulled this. Hang on a second. Well, case in point, gas prices are up to $4.08 a gallon. They're up just since yesterday. So that was just one big fucking lie that he told. Do I have that here? I thought I pulled this data. Just give me a second here. Okay. This is reported by the AP. They compiled this. The claim, no inflation. We're a dead and crippled country after the last administration and made it the hottest country anywhere in the world by far with no inflation. That's a quote. You just heard it. Here's the facts. The standard Trump claimed that the economy he inherited was far from weak. In 2024, the last year of Biden's presidency. What about Biden? Thank you, Joe. American gross domestic product grew by 2.8% adjusted for inflation, faster than any wealthy country in the world except for Spain. It has also expanded a healthy rate from 2021 to 2023. Last year, in fact, U.S. economic growth under Trump decelerated to a still respectable 2.1%, partly because of the 43-day government shutdown / growth from October through December. Nor has inflation vanished. The Labor Department's Consumer Price Index was up 2.4% in February compared with a year earlier. It's still above the Fed's reserve 2.2% target. There are estimates, we'll get that in a few days, there are estimates that because of the war the president started, we're seeing gas pricing spike, we're seeing energy costs spike, that inflation might approach 4%. So again, MAGA friends, no on no inflation. Okay, next, regime change. Quote, regime change was not our goal. Yeah, it was. We never said regime change, but regime change has occurred because of all their original leaders' death. They're all dead. The new group is less radical and much more reasonable. The facts, Trump's depiction of the people now in charge in Iran after scores of senior leaders were killed in the war stretches just a bit. Israel's airstrike at the start of the war, February the 28th, took out the Ayatollah. Iran then installed his son, who was viewed as even more hardline as the supreme leader. The month-long war has seen Iran's paramilitary Revolutionary Guard grow even more ascendant. Iran's civilian leadership, broadly untouched by the war, acknowledges it has little command and control over the Guard's actions. Both Trump and Israel have signaled they would tell the Iranian people to rise up at a point in the war to take back their government. That has not happened. Protester deaths claim, quote, this murderous regime also recently killed 45,000 of their own people who were protesting in Iran. The facts, a death toll that high has never been verified. The U.S.-based human rights activist news agency, which has been accurate in multiple rounds of demonstrations in Iran, said it confirmed the deaths of just over 7,000 people in the nationwide protests that reached their apex in January. However, it said thousands more may have been killed, though internet and communication restrictions in Iran have since made it verifying the reports incredibly difficult. It put total arrests at more than 50,000. Iran's government, which long has played down death tolls and other unrest, offered its own toll on January 21st, saying 3,117 people were killed. Trump previously said that at least 32,000 people lost their lives, which is at the far end of the estimates offered by activists for the death toll. He offered no evidence to support those figures. Middle East oil claim, we are now totally independent of the Middle East, and yet we are there to help. We don't have to be there. We don't need their oil. Okay, it's true the United States is by far the world's leading producer of oil and relies on the Persian Gulf for a fraction, 8.5% in 2025, the oil it imports. But as is obvious at the U.S. gas pumps, that doesn't mean it is unaffected by the turmoil in the Middle East. Oil trades globally. It's a commodity. Sensitivities, no matter where it comes from, whether it's Russia, whether it's Saudi, whether it's the Persian Gulf, whether it's Venezuela, whether it's from us, whether it's from Canada, whomever, any volatility drives up prices. We know that to be true. We are witnessing it firsthand. Okay? It's not a coincidence that gas prices are now over $4 a gallon. And just to be clear, $4.08 today, up from $4.06 yesterday. It was $3.98 a week ago, $2.99 a month ago, and $3.23 a year ago. Diesel prices, So Trump supporting truck drivers. Your diesel prices on the current are $5.50 a gallon. They're up almost $2 in a year. So if you have a 100-gallon tank or a 50-gallon tank, you can do the maths. I'm just throwing that out there. All right. Again, it's true the United States is by far the world's leading producer of oil and relies on the Persian Gulf for a fraction, roughly 8.5% in 2025. But as obvious at the pumps, it doesn't mean it's unaffected by the turmoil in the Gulf. Oil is a commodity. the price of which is set in a global market. University of Energy analyst Sam Orey said before Trump's speech, quote, and a disruption anywhere affects the price everywhere, which is why the price of benchmark U.S. crude oil is up more than 50% since the war began, and the average price of and the average price of a U.S. gallon of gasoline cracked $4. Not an April Fool's joke. Inflated investments. Trump cited, quote, record-setting investments coming into the United States over $18 trillion. Trump has presented no evidence that he secured this much domestic or foreign investment in the U.S. Based on statements from various companies, foreign countries, and the White House's own website, that figure appears to be grossly exaggerated, highly speculative, and far higher than the actual sum. The White House website itself offers a far lower number, around $10.5 trillion, and that figure appears to include some investment commitments made during the Biden administration. What about Biden? A study published in January raised doubts about whether more than $5 trillion has been invested through commitments made last year by many of America's biggest trading partners that will actually materialize, and questions how it would be spent if it did. So think about that for a second, okay? The White House's website, the White House's own website talks about $10.5 trillion. The president has been running with this $18 trillion number. I've heard it go as high as 20. So he brought back those talking points last night, right? $18 trillion, hottest country on earth, blah, fucking blah. There is no evidence of any of that. They say the number is closer to $5 trillion, but a lot of those commitments were made during the Biden presidency. So the maths ain't mathin'. And then cash to Iran. This is a good one. Claim. Quote, Obama gave Iran $1.7 billion in cash. Here are the facts. This misleading claim that President Obama handed over cash to the Iranians dates back to Trump's first term and persists in his second. The U.S. Treasury did pay Iran roughly that amount under Obama, but it was not a gift. Rather, it was money owed to the Iranians since the 1970s when they paid the U.S. $400 million for military equipment that was never delivered because the government was overthrown and diplomatic relations ruptured. After the 2015 deal to restrain Iran's nuclear development, the JCPOA, that was working, the U.S. and Iran announced that they had settled the matter, with the U.S. agreeing to pay the $400 million principal in cash, along with $1.3 billion in interest. Trump later took the U.S. out of that deal. So again, inflation, yes. Oil, we need it. Global commodities. Cash to Iran, no. Regime change, no. Regime change, yes. Deaths of protesters, not nearly as high. And then $18 trillion investment, it's all bullshit. It was one fucking lie after another. It was just a fluff piece, just so he could walk out like Obama did. That famous strut that Obama did down the halls of the East Wing, right? The East Wing that no longer exists because the president tore it down. But there's that. So he sits there and then continues to lie to the American public. And people are just believing it. And I ask myself this question, like, why? Why do you guys continue to just debase yourself over this shit? Why are we spending more money on the military-industrial complex to enrich Wall Street, et cetera, when we should be spending it on healthcare? And we're going to talk about that in a second, because I did this little breakdown, like I said, through the Kaiser Family Foundation, just a little bit of research. But there's more to the story because of the Supreme Court. Thank you, Paige. There's more to the story because of the Supreme Court yesterday. So, like, the president has had a rough couple of weeks. So it kind of I've got a couple of sounders I want to play for you. The CPAC event last week, we played some sound from that yesterday, and we know that down in Texas they were talking about family values, about outbreeding them. Thank you, Benny Johnson. Only to find out that Grindr crashed. I'm not judging. Do your thing. Dallas is a great city. Do your thing. Maybe get a VPN. I don't know. Maybe get a hotspot. I don't know. All these kinds of things might help Grindr from crashing, or perhaps reinforce your grind or whatever. Anywho, so this is pretty funny to me. So the president did not attend CPAC, and you have to ask yourself, like, why he didn't go. So Caroline Leavitt was asked this question yesterday, and here is her answer.
Always attended CPAC. He did not this year. Why did he not attend, and does he believe CPAC is becoming less relevant?
No, I don't think he believes that at all. In fact, he loves CPAC and has a very good relationship with the great people who run it, Mercedes and Matt Schlapp. It was just simply for scheduling purposes this year, with it being in Texas. It was best for the president's schedule and what he has on his plate right now.
Okay, so she mentioned Matt Schlapp. Matt Schlapp is the person, he's a GOP operative, hardcore MAGA. He's kind of the coordinator behind CPAC. So you heard Caroline, like, no, the president loves CPAC. It's just the schedule didn't matter. Okay, well, there was this famous uncomfortable moment that I found from CPAC where Matt Schlapp is addressing the crowd. And this is what he had to say and their response.
How many of you would like to see impeachment hearings? No, that was the wrong answer. Let me try it again. How many of you would like to see impeachment hearings? No. Can someone bring some coffee out for the...
I know.
You would like to see...
I'm sorry. Just one more time, please. Right. Lizette, maybe they didn't understand the assignment, but maybe they actually did. So how many, again, think about what this is. This is the Conservative Political Action Committee, right? This was turning point before turning point. CPAC is where white nationalists go to, I don't know, propagate or whatever. So he comes out on stage and says, how many of you support impeachment? Again, here you go.
How many of you would like to see impeachment hearings? No, that was the wrong answer. Let me try it again. How many of you would like to see impeachment hearings? No. Can someone bring some coffee out for the...
I know.
We've got to keep this House majority. How many of you agree with that?
Okay, remember we played... Remember we played the sound yesterday from Todd Blanche, who's the deputy AG, and he's saying, listen, if we don't win this, there's going to be impeachment hearings, we're going to be indicted. Like he's trying to, exactly, Airwolf, but we're the ones that are indoctrinated. You know, if we don't maintain the majority in the House and the Senate and whatever else, they're going to indict us all, they're going to charge us all, they're going to impeach us all those kinds of things are going to happen. And like he's telling people the obvious because he fucking knows. And here's CPAC, and most of them are just attendees. They're not necessarily elected officials, although some of them are. The people in the crowd, right? It's exactly but the sheep didn't even get the assignment. Matt Schlapp was expecting them to say, no, we don't want impeachment. But instead they fucking cheer for it. Yeah, exactly. This is Des. Stop breaking the fucking law. You don't want to get impeached. You don't want to get indicted. You don't want to get charged. You don't want to get dragged in front of Congress. Then stop fucking breaking the fucking law. How about that? So speaking of people who are going to be on the hot seat, I'll play that every day. Yeah, Merman, it's a good idea. I will keep that. I'll keep that in my coffers, as they say. We'll get back to the birthright case in just a minute because we do need to address that because there's some interesting things that came out of that yesterday, and I respect Attorney Dye. I know she talked about it yesterday with Law of the Wild and with Cass, our friend Cass, and they were breaking it down. The majority of Supreme Court rulings are 9-0. I don't know if it'll go 9-0, but I just don't see. You guys know me. I'm pragmatic when it comes to these things. I always try to be objective. I don't know how the textualists within the Supreme Court can just rewrite the rules of the Constitution. I just don't see it happening. The president made another wholesale claim that the United States is the only country on earth that does birthright citizenship. That is just not true. There's between 30 and 35. Canada and Mexico, by the way, offer the same as ours. So with the exception of diplomats, just like in our country. So the reality is that the president had a rough day yesterday. But speaking of those people that are in trouble, now you recall Kristi Noem's testimony in front of the House is really what got her fired because she tried to pass the blame of the $200,000 cosplay, Wild Wild West Barbie campaign thing that she did, and she blamed the president. And within hours, she lost her job. And Pam Bondi is scheduled to appear before the House for her testimony. I think it's the 14th of April, so it's coming up. Mods, can you guys confirm that for me? I think it's the 14th. I think that's the date that she's supposed to appear, on or around then. Doesn't matter. Well, there's now some internal churning within the administration about the future of Pam Bondi. Caitlin Collins, who I've gained a lot more respect for. She's been dragged pretty mercilessly by the administration, but she does a really good job, I think, asking the appropriate questions. So this is her reporting on, I don't know, the future of Pam Bondi.
Here at CNN that President Trump has privately mused about firing his Attorney General Pam Bondi and replacing her with the EPA administrator, a longtime loyalist of his, Lee Zeldin. This is something.
Think about that for a second. Has there been anybody that has been more loyal to the president than Pam Bondi? I mean, but the Dow. Has there been anybody that's been more loyal to him than her? Shocker, though. The women in his cabinet are the ones that are going to be ousted first. We've got sound from yesterday when he said, I'll play that right now, as a matter of fact, when he said this about Caroline Leavitt, another loyal sycophant.
Washington Post is almost extinct. The papers that are being dishonest, the papers generally, people don't believe the media. And to finish, I got 93% bad publicity. Some people say 97, but between 93 and 97. A person that gets 97% of bad stories, maybe Caroline's doing a poor job. I don't know. She's my representative. You're doing a terrible job. Should we keep her? I think we'll keep her. But I get 93 to 90.
Okay, so Caroline's doing a bad job because the press is doing their job, but not fascist. Okay, so back to the sound from Caitlin Collins regarding Pam Bondi. Now, if I was a betting man, to which I'm not. Hi, Di, how are you? Great coverage, by the way, of the Supreme Court yesterday. If you want to come up and talk about it, feel free. Again, Pam Bondi's hearing scheduled for the 14th. Let me just confirm that since my mod team is incredible. Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much. Real quick. Thank you. Shifty Lincoln, thank you for the super chat on YouTube. Good morning, Steve. Still the best mic dropper on all of YouTube. I know you are getting MAGA to burn their hats. The ones that don't call in and harass you are the ones just listening. Keep it up, buddy. Thank you, Shifty Lincoln. I appreciate you. Hearts in the chat for Shifty Lincoln. I really appreciate that. Thanks for saying that. Yes, it is the 14th of April that she's scheduled to appear before the House. So this is Caitlin Collins talking about, I don't know, the future of Pam Bondi. If I were a betting man, before I play this sound for you, if I were a betting man, my guess is if they're going to make a decision to replace her, it's going to be before this testimony. So be watching tune in here for the breaking news.
Us here at CNN that President Trump has privately mused about firing his Attorney General Pam Bondi and replacing her with the EPA administrator, a longtime loyalist of his, Lee Zeldin. This is something that the president has been talking about in recent days, but it first actually arose back in January when the president was frustrated by the backlash that his administration was getting over its handling of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, and it started to be discussed again inside the West Wing.
Yeah, somebody said that. Privately mused? Like he privately mused? Okay.
In the last few days, as Pam Bondi is now staring down about a 2-week deadline before she's supposed to go and testify in accordance with that subpoena that she got on Capitol Hill for their investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Now, it's not clear if the president has made a final decision about firing Pam Bondi. She was actually seen riding with him in his motorcade on Wednesday as he went to the Supreme Court for.
Can you imagine having to sit with the president in like the tight environment that is the beast, like in the limo, even if it's just a trip from the White House to the Supreme Court, which is like blocks away? Oof, man, can somebody crack a window? Can I get a pine-scented air freshener, please? Thank you.
Those hearings on birthright citizenship. And he did tell us in a statement tonight that Pam Bondi is a good person and that he thought she was doing a good job.
Ooh.
But we're told he's not.
That's not a ringing endorsement.
Not only frustrated about the backlash they've gotten over the Epstein files, He's also privately fumed about the idea that she hasn't gone after enough of his political opponents that he wants to see DOJ investigations into. Now, it remains to be seen if this ultimately happens, if the president fires her, if he does replace her with Lee Zeldin. That's been the top name that we're told that he's discussed. And of course, she does have a longtime ally inside the West Wing still. That's Susie Wiles, the chief of staff. Both of them are from Florida, have known each other for decades. But of course, it was also Susie Wiles who acknowledged in that Vanity Fair interview that she did a few months ago that Pam Bondi had completely whiffed on the handling of the Epstein investigation.
Well, that's not exactly a ringing endorsement. It's like when you leave your review with your boss, right? It's interesting. With the exception of you showing up late to work 4 to 5 days a week, you missing numerous deadlines, your penmanship is horrible. I don't like the fact that you make popcorn in the microwave every Thursday. Other than all that shit, you're okay. That's what it feels like. So mark your calendars. I cannot believe after what happened with Kristi Noem and that ridiculous testimony that she gave, I cannot believe that they're going to allow Pam Bondi under her current title, because if she's no longer the AG, she will likely not be called to testify. Okay? Again, I don't know the rules there. There's a subpoena out for her, but the subpoena's out for her as the AG. Now, they talk about Lee Zeldin. Lee Zeldin is a hardcore MAGA. Lee Zeldin is the EPA administrator. There's another name that I think you should keep in mind if this does happen, and that would be Ken Paxton. Ken Paxton is the current AG in Texas, and the reason I say that is because he's in the Senate race, right? And he is not popular in Texas, and polling looks like he may end up being the nominee. Now, the president is freaking the fuck out about Texas. So do you clear the field by pulling Ken Paxton from the Senate race and you put him in as your AG? Doesn't necessarily mean that Cornyn's going to win, but that divided electorate there in Texas, this is a real opportunity for you. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. That's just a prediction. I'm not even going to call it a prediction. It's more like a thought. But what do you think the odds are? We should check the betting. We should check the betting line actually on that. We should really see what the odds are, because I don't think she's going to make it to the testimony. Maybe the conversation was, they're driving. Listen, Pam, if you can survive the smell between here and the SCOTUS, then maybe we can talk. But anyway, I guess we'll see. So think about that. And if Ken Paxton's name shows up and starts to circulate, you heard it here first. I'm just saying. I'm sure I'm not the first person to talk about it, but it would make sense to me. Again, if you're looking at the map, because the Republicans know if they lose Texas, if they lose Texas, especially the Texas Senate seats, then it's game over for future elections for a long time. Because that's just used to be blue. Keep that in mind. So we'll see how that tracks, right? Well, we will see how that tracks. I don't know how it's gonna play out, but I just can't imagine Pam Bondi surviving the next 2 weeks, so she has to go testify. When there's rumblings in the White House, oftentimes the president demands loyalty, and just goes to show you that loyalty is a one-way street. Caroline Leavitt, how he's talked about those lips, they move like a machine gun, those lips, and then all of a sudden, you're doing a shitty job. To her face. All right? Pam Bondi, fantastic job. Kristi Noem, fantastic job, until you make me look bad. And then you're out the fucking door. Loyalty is literally a one-way street in this White House. Now, there's many reasons you can point to. The president telling people, privately that he didn't like the fact that she's not been able to prosecute his enemies. And again, MAGA, I know you're in here. So when you said, what about Biden and the weaponization of the Department of Justice, even though that did not happen, the Department of Justice investigating the president and other cohorts for crimes was not at the direction of Joe Biden. Now, I can be critical of Merrick Garland and even the president for saying, listen, we need to get this moving here because this guy is a fucking threat. So I can be critical of that. Now, case in point, it should prove to you that the weaponization of the DOJ under Biden was obviously not the case, because if it were, day one of the Biden administration, the investigation would have opened into Trump, and it didn't. So here we sit. The reason it seems like, obviously, her incompetence in regards to, although he doesn't see it incompetence, just sees it as whatever. The fact that she's not been able to secure indictments. Letitia James and James Comey and John Brennan and others. And there's been no evidence. Keep in mind, federal indictments, I forget what the numbers are, but like it's the ham sandwich idea. What's like 97% or a ridiculous number of federal indictments are secured. And it seems like the president just keeps losing and losing and losing. And yeah, the sandwich thrower, thank you, Chris. The sandwich thrower, exactly. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Okay, with that being said, let's get into some of the sound from the birthright citizen case yesterday. As a reminder, the argument the president and his team are making is whether or not you being born here is just enough to classify you as a citizen. So these are the countries in the world that do offer birthright citizenship. There's about 30 to 35 that offer unrestricted birthright citizenship. Almost all of them are in the Americas, the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Very, very similar. And then you get countries that also are in our region, including Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Peru, Venezuela, Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, and Tobago. Also, Pakistan, Chad, Lesotho, Tanzania, and most of the world does not do this. Countries in Europe, for example, Germany, France, the UK, Asia, Middle East, typically use citizenship based on parents, not birthplace, or a conditional version. So the case, actually, there she is right now. I'll bring her right up. Great timing. Good morning, friend. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing very well. Can you hear me okay?
I got you. Yes. Just wanted to compliment you on your coverage yesterday. I've got a whole bunch of sound to play, but I thought since you're here,
heck yeah,
if you wouldn't mind, just kind of talking about what you heard, what you thought. I know we're not able to predict these kinds of things. We can make educated guesses, and you're wicked smart, as they say in the Northeast. So,
oh my goodness.
I would appreciate your perspective on what you saw yesterday. And friends, if you don't follow Attorney Di, please do. And I'm fanboying at the moment because you're one of the first creators that I saw in this app that really talked about things in legalese. And then you followed me back. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So welcome to the show. Tell us what you got.
Well, okay. And thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate it. Especially with all the trolls right now. But yesterday we had this is huge. This is a fundamental piece of America. Is to say, if you're born here, we're going to take you and you're going to be part of the country. But the problem is a couplefold, in my opinion. The first one is this is an executive order rather than a constitutional amendment or rather than some kind of a case involving the question of citizenship. It is an executive order where he said every single person that had anything to do with kids being born or whatever, they all are not allowed to grant citizenship. So his executive order is terrible, unconstitutional. And that's the big thing Sotomayor was talking about. Like, if we've got an unconstitutional EO, why are we going forward and even taking the case to hear it? And, I think that's a good point. The other piece on it, too, that I thought was interesting is we've got Wong Kim Ark, right? That's the cornerstone case. And to have a case this old with this much history, I think, shows that SCOTUS is not going to be comfortable overturning it. So the justices were talking about this issue of domicile, which was a little bit of dicta in some of our other cases. And then we were talking about our indigenous folks and their citizenship, because that's a huge, huge issue. So those are a couple of the highlights that came in. But I would say just right off the bat, when Thomas said, well, how does this work with Dred Scott? I think that was the moment where I think I may have forever lost a little piece of my heart. I think that was it. It was gone.
While you're here, I think I'm going to play that exchange with Neil Gorsuch and John Sauer regarding Indigenous folks, if you don't mind.
Yes.
It's a pretty short clip. Then we can talk about it.
Native Americans today are birthright citizens under your test and under your friend's test.
I think so. I mean, obviously, they've been granted citizenship by statute.
Put aside the statute. Do you think they're birthright citizens?
No, I think the clear understanding that everybody agrees in the congressional debates is that the children of tribal Indians are not birthright citizens.
I understand that's what they said, but your test is the domicile of the parents, and that would be the test you'd have us apply today, right?
Yes.
That part. Like indigenous people, the question as to whether or not indigenous persons are birthright citizens, first of all, they were indigenous before there was a constitution in general and before there was a United States. So that was a very telling moment. You referenced that. You would agree that that was very, I'm not going to say controversial, but John Sauer didn't really have an answer to that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and one of the things, I've talked to a lot of other peoples, and we're like, you know what, if you don't have basic understanding of your case, like, don't argue it in front of the Supreme Court. That's kind of how we felt. Like, you can be like, if you're in a state Supreme Court and you are missing a case or something, you're like, Your Honor, I apologize. I can follow this up with a just a point here later. But if you're in front of the U.S. Supreme Court and there's a question like our indigenous citizenship, which is obviously going to be a piece of this case, and you just say, well, I don't know. Holy buckets, that's awful.
Do you think, agreed. And I was trying to think about this. Like, I try to be pragmatic and objective to these kinds of things. And first of all, I don't see any reason to do this other than what we've seen from this administration and Stephen Miller's objective to whitewash America, literally and figuratively. But it affects potentially everyone. And I think one thing that I've learned, I'm curious your opinion on this, the Roberts Court doesn't seem to like ambiguity. Like, they don't want a ruling to be left and then have people saying, what does that even mean? We can think about the immunity case. I think that one may be the exception. But if we're talking about the categorizing of birthright citizenship, what happens in a hospital tomorrow if a child is born and they remove the right to birthright citizenship? Like, how does it even work? What's the mechanism? Are you interviewing every parent? Is it becomes a domicile issue? You can't predict how long somebody's going to live here. How would it even be executed? Any thoughts to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's huge. That's a huge point, is the practicality of trying to actually implement this executive order all across the whole U.S. for all of our hospitals, right? That's absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion. There's no way to implement it, but there has been some language put into the complaint by the petitioners in the class saying the date the class started. And so they've got kind of a start date. So anyone born after that date then would be considered needing to comply with the executive order. And I think it's the day the EO came out is what's separating that up. But, what exactly what you're saying before, like, okay, a baby's born, all right, or, whatever. They like to call that, I think, a late term AB. But when the baby is born, how are you going to be able to tell? How are you going to be able to say to the mom, like, hey, where are you from? Where are you going? Or you're racial profiling. So there's just a lot of different moving pieces to this. And the practical aspect of it, that's bonkers.
Yeah, ma'am, you're 5 centimeters dilated and your contractions are 4 minutes apart. Tell me, are you a citizen?
Exactly, right? I
don't mean to joke about it, but it seems like practical questions that would have to be asked and answered, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes you got to joke about stuff like this because it's freaking crazy. I think Cass yesterday said, oh, well, get the newborns to raise their right hand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. And then boom, allegiance, they're here.
Seriously, before you take the APGAR, before you go through your scoring, you got to raise your right hand. That's scary.
I'm really is.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. I know that you're probably not a betting person, but if you were to, based on what you know, based on your massive brain and your experience in this kind of cases, where do you think this goes? from a ruling perspective?
And before Dobbs, honestly, I would be very comfortable being like, all right, yeah, you got to follow the law. But after Dobbs, with Alito and Thomas, if it's going to hurt people, they're going to vote for it. And that's kind of my view. But we've got, in my opinion, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Comey Barrett, they're all swingers. They're all flippers. Now, less so with Kavanaugh, he might go into the other side, although his questions didn't sound like he was very impressed. Gorsuch will probably be with the majority if it on, denying this, but it's also a question, I think, for Gorsuch on the future of the constitutionality of it, because that's what he likes to argue. He's always like, this is the most important case ever when we're writing it. John Roberts, I think, will be the one that's negotiating. Like, you guys give me 3 votes, I'll give you my vote in the next couple of months on another thing coming up. So he negotiates a lot with that. And then, of course, our 3 left-leaning justices, of course, will be coming out and being like, dude, this isn't how our legal system works. So I'm thinking, numbers-wise, again, I think the most that the dissent will get would be 3. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. But in a case that's important with John Roberts, he's going to want he's going to want a unanimous decision. He's going to want the whole bench to come back saying that they support whatever the decision is. Because if you can get 9, then we're for sure moving forward with the constitutional question. But if you can't, I think Roberts is going to be pretty upset about that.
Clarence Thomas, from what I saw, Di, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't see any statements and or questions from him. And usually if he wants to, at least in my limited experience with the SCOTUS, when he wants to chime in on something, he's not shy. So is that a flag that perhaps he's like, this is ridiculous? Why are we even talking about this? The fact that he didn't comment?
It's possible. It's absolutely possible. Like, he's got the most seniority on the whole bench. So he needs to go first. That's how they kind of loop around. Although Roberts is the one, of course, telling each justice that they can ask questions, skipped Sotomayor twice. And I'm like, dude, the misogyny. But anyway, back to Thomas. He's not ever been much of a talker. The last couple of years, it seems like he's talked more in the last couple of years than he has the entire time he was a justice. But his comments at the very beginning about Dred Scott, that question, that is, I think it's a telling sign, because Thomas would undo the Loving case, where we've got interracial marriage. He would undo the Tinker case, which set out freedom of expression. And so he set all of these, New York Times v. Sullivan, he set all these cases out and was like, we need to redo all of that. And so at this point, with him being a bit quiet about it, I'm not sure. It could be a sign, though, that this isn't where he wants to, take his shot on those issues.
Yeah, interesting that Clarence Thomas chiming in on interracial marriage when he's in one.
Yes.
There's that piece. I'm going to play this last little bit of sound, if you don't mind. Can you stay for another minute?
Oh, sure.
Okay, this is John Roberts questioning John Sauer.
And in your briefing and also this morning, the problem of birth tourism, do you have any information about how common that is, or how significant a problem it is?
It's a great question. No one knows for sure. There's a March 9th letter from a number of members of Congress to DHS saying, do we have any information about it?
First of all, interesting that you said if you better be prepared if you're going to go to the SCOTUS. So when the Chief Justice asks you a question about something that you present about birth tourism, and you're like, oh, that's a good question, I don't really know, probably not a good start to the conversation.
No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. Nope.
Yeah, here we go, back to this.
The media reports indicate estimates could be over 1 million or 1.5 million from the People's Republic of China alone. The congressional report that we cite in our brief talks about certain hotspots like Russian elites coming to Miami through these birth tourism companies. And I mean, here's the fact about it that I think is striking. Media reported as early as 2015 that based on Chinese media reports, there are 500 birth tourism companies in the People's Republic of China whose business is to bring people here to give birth and return to that nation.
Having said all that, you do agree that that has no impact on the legal analysis before us?
I think it's, I quote what Justice Scalia said in his Hamdan dissent, where their interpretation has these implications that could not possibly have been approved by the 19th century framers of this amendment. I think that shows that they've made a mess. Their interpretation has made a mess of the provision.
Well, it certainly wasn't a problem in the 19th century.
No, but of course, we're in a new world now, as Justice Alito pointed out, to where 8 billion people are one plane ride away from having a child who's a U.S. citizen.
Well, it's a new world. It's the same Constitution.
Ooh.
It is.
Spicy.
And as Justice Scalia said, I think in the case that Justice Alito was referring to, you've got a constitutional provision that addresses certain evils and it should be extended to reasonably comparable evils. He said that about statutory interpretation. I think the same principle applies here, and I think we quote that in our brief.
Thank you.
Does this touch on domicile, Di?
I would say maybe a little bit, because we're talking about the intent, right? So if they're sending people over and their intent is just to have a child and then go back, I think the domicile argument would be okay if you're crazy, because we're talking about the kid. We're not talking about the mom, right? And we're also not talking about the dad. Where are the dads in all this? I mean, I know the mom's given birth, but also I think the thing with what Roberts was saying is he's asking this question basically that we ask constantly as we, try to help get information out there, which is show me your source. Right? Where'd you get this information from? Where exactly are you coming from? And he's like, blah, blah, whatever. But none of what he said was convincing, in my opinion. The other thing is that if he's going to be up in front of that Chief Justice, he should have a source. So I think that's another area that he just did not focus on.
It sounds like when we debate MAGA, like, what's your source? But what a savage line from the Chief Justice to say, sure, it's, that was the 19th century. It's a different world, but it's the same Constitution, right? And would you consider Roberts a textualist?
I would. Roberts is tough, though. I've always felt like he was a swinger. And then we got into, honestly, his dissent in Obergefell was where that moment of realization came in with the with where he really stands with the Constitution. He's not as much of a swinger as I had hoped. But yeah, I would say he has been, from the cases that I've read and the perspective he wants to come back with the history and tradition, BS. But he was clerking for Justice Rehnquist, Chief Justice Rehnquist, who was on the court. It was his court before Roberts. And Rehnquist, I have always felt has been better. Well, I'm sorry, has been worse than Scalia. I'm not a big Rehnquist fan, so I think that there is some of that, though, pressing down on Roberts.
Okay, so it looks like, from what I read, we may get a decision at the end of the term, June, July. Does that sound accurate to you?
Yeah. And, with the immunity case, they kind of waited until the last day, even literally the last day, until they published it. And if that was good or bad, I don't know. But I think at this point, they figured out you want to kind of wait, or else people are going to be mad at you. But if you do it the last day and then they run, right, and go do all of their stuff out in the real world, it's like, you can't catch me. So I think that's going to be part of it. But yeah, they always finish their cases before they leave for their summer break.
So I'm going to put you down for 6-3 in support of the ACLU. Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh. Or 9-0. Can I have 2?
Or 9-0. Yes, you can have 2. Absolutely. I mean, if you were put on the spot, what would you say?
I think analytically, academically, we're looking at 6-3. But if Roberts is in there saying, everything else is unacceptable, Coney Barrett also has snipped at some of the justices for not following along with the majority. And she was very outspoken about that. So she also has a little bit of pressure that she puts on the other justices. So that's like where my, if this was 4 or 5 years ago, that's how I would feel about it, that we could definitely have a 9-0. But now, I don't know, academically, I don't know. 6-3 is looking like a possibility for me.
By the way, I refer to her as Amy Boney Carrot. Just so you know. That's just a little pet name that I have coined for her. Anything else that you would like to add? Again, thank you so much for your time this morning. I appreciate that. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Of course, of course. I would say right now the one thing I really am trying to get out to the people is that I have the closet docket. I'm not sure if you've been around and heard about that. This is where I've put up a sticky note for every lawsuit filed against the administration for constitutional violations, federal law violations. We're at over 700 at this point. So, a lot of people don't realize where the fight is. For me, the fight's in the courts. And so if you're not really watching the courts, it's overwhelming. But 700, that's unheard of. I mean, it's absolutely unheard of.
Actually, one thing popped in my head before I let you go. I'm not going to let you run yet. I talk here often about the importance of the press. Like I don't think the First Amendment right, freedom of the press, gets enough attention. It is now because of what we're seeing with the FCC chiming in, the FCC threatening licenses, suppressing speech, et cetera, et cetera. The merger of all these media companies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That ruling that the cutting funding to PBS and NPR, I think, is significant. Probably doesn't talked about enough that they deemed that unconstitutional. Do you expect that to be appealed to the Supreme Court?
I do. I expect everything they don't win on to be appealed to the Supreme Court. But I think the Supreme Court's we're not going to be able to hear every single case. So they got to be careful which battle they're picking. But that case, in my opinion, I know everyone's here for the, birthright citizenship, and we've got all other kinds of questions coming up. In my humble opinion, I would say PBS and NPR is the most important case because we're talking about the money from the federal government and they're refusing to help. That's like 200 lawsuits right there. So if that case falls, it's going to be dominoes for all the rest of those cases. So, and that's like the number one filed case has to do with federal funds being withheld. So I think whatever happens in that case, again, will be really, really important. So I know it's not getting much coverage. I know the press is like they want to report, but they also don't want to get banned because apparently that's okay to do that. But when it comes, in my opinion, to hardcore what's going on right now, I think the NPR PBS case is incredibly important.
Yeah, Di, because Elmo is such a threat.
Well,
That's how I see it.
He's coming for you.
Yeah.
Cookie is a sometime food. Sometimes.
That's true. The word of the day is fuck them. Anywho, I appreciate you very much for your time. And if you, again, friends, if you don't follow Attorney Di, I don't know why you're not, because I have learned so much from you. And it is an honor to have you on our show today. Thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm glad to do it. I'll wait for you to bump me, though, so that you don't have problems here.
You got it. Thanks again. Have a good day. Be safe out there.
You too. Yeah.
It's a great breakdown. Yeah. And one of the reasons that I like Di so much is that she explains complicated shit in a really simple, easy to use, easily consumed way. So I would agree. I think, and something she said I think is interesting is that the swinging within the Supreme Court. Hey, now, I saw you all. Don't think I didn't see that. I saw you swingers out there. Hey, now, how they negotiate. Like, you support me here, I'll support you there. I guess I always assumed that happened. But to hear Di talk about it, like, you give me this vote here, John Roberts wants a majority. I think that's obviously the goal. You want decisions to be made unanimous, whether for or against, or in support or opposition to. Interesting. I just, again, from reading what I saw and from listening to the statements there, from John Sauer not having his answers together, and from Neil Gorsuch questioning challenging. Are you saying that indigenous people who were born here before we had a constitution can't make claims to birthright citizenship? So we'll see. But thank you again, Di, for jumping in today. I really appreciate you. Okay. A lot of folks have requested here from friends. We'll try to get to as many as possible. And we've got other things that we'll cover today. But thank you for allowing us that conversation, because I think it's incredibly important. Good morning, Richard. How are you today?
I'm good.
Good. What's on your mind?
Oh, I've just been listening, commenting in the comments and listening, and uh, I made a comment a little bit ago, saying that I'm worried that we have to hope that the SCOTUS is the one that's going to be able to turn this around, even since they're the ones that caused it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, don't forget that they're there via appointment. So yeah, I would agree that the immunity decision, I think, surprised everybody. Yeah.
I understand the appointments, but a 6-3 or a 5-4 even would. I would go with that. I would accept that, but if it goes the other way, it could stop everything.
Changes our country forever. Thanks for jumping in today, Richard. I appreciate you being here, sir. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.
Sure.
Be safe out there. Yeah, I mean, again, you'd like to see it 9-0. One of the things that I would like to see going forward, now this may be a controversial take, but I don't appreciate these lifetime appointments of federal judges. I just don't. I don't think you can have somebody serve on the highest court in the land for decades. This spans generations. As society evolves, a person's opinion on something 25 years ago, I don't see how you can maintain that. So if you can't get term limits on the court, then you need to change the amount of people that sit on the court. So one of the things that I would support in my new America, I haven't gotten past the Second Amendment in my new Constitution yet. I'm working on it. I'll get back to you guys on that. In my America, I would say we need at least 11 justices. I would say 13 to match with the circuits, right? There's 13 separate appeals divisions. Put a Supreme Court justice and responsible for all of them. And then you potentially balance out the court by appointments. So that's going to require a big flip. But why do we have term limits for the president, and then we don't have term limits for members of Congress, and we don't have term limits for the Supreme Court? It's going to take some changes to the Constitution, et cetera. But it's things like this, because then what ends up happening is that you can stack the deck against the Constitution. The president goes there yesterday for the first time. I think from what I read, it's like the first time a sitting president has ever gone to sit there, and he had to sit quietly, like sit on his hands in the front row, stinking up the place, right? Crop dusting the public viewing area of the Supreme Court before he left. But I don't, it's like, I just don't think you can have, this applies. Here's my pragmatism as as somebody who looks at things objectively. Same would apply if you had a strong left-leaning court, right? Again, decisions that lean left tend to prioritize the things that we should all prioritize, which are rights expansion, whether it be Obergefell, same-sex marriage, whether it be Dobbs, whether it be Brown v. Board of Education, whatever that might be, Dred Scott, whatever it might be, whatever those decisions are. If you are prioritizing the collective, meaning things that benefit the society, then those are good decisions. I like to think we can all agree. Can't have these morality decisions, because morality is subjective, even though Christians don't think so. Hardcore Christians, the Christian nationalists, the white supremacists, that group of people, they don't think that morality is subjective. They think it's objective, and that whatever God says goes. We know that's not true, which is why we talk about the separation of church and state. Would I like to see an expanded court? I would. Would I like to see term limits on the court? I would. Yes. Would I like to see age limits? Potentially. It's not to be ageist. I'm just saying if we want to progress as a society, then we have to consider some wholesale changes. So I'll leave that right there. Yeah, it's funny since they don't have any morality. You're right about that. You're right about that. Some do, but most don't. Good morning, Kay. How are you today? Kay, are you there? Kay? I guess not. Thank you, Kay. Appreciate you. Good morning, Arlene. How are you today? Arlene? Arlene? Are you there? It's funny. The first few guests of the day for the past couple of days have just kind of fallen in. I'm not sure if it's like, the accidental touching that did not come out right. The accidental requesting? Yes. Okay. Let me see. Here's Ginger Af. Good morning, Ginger. How are you today? Ginger? Ginger. See what I mean? Accidental touching. I mean, accidental requesting. Good morning, friend. How are you?
Good morning, sir. How are we doing today?
Excellent. What's on your mind?
Nothing much. I cannot follow a legend like Di, but I will do my best to be just an ordinary guy.
I'm with you on that one, bro. I'm with you on that one.
Yes, because I'm taking criminal justice at St. Leo, and it's hard to understand the legalese that the Supreme Court puts out on their docket. So I appreciate that content creator for putting it out so we can all understand it. Because trust me, when you read it, you're reading it backwards and forwards at the same time. So I'm glad she's able to put that out there so that I can understand it in my simple mind.
Me too.
Yeah, but back on this whole administration, as you notice, that it's only the women taking the punishment, which is kind of fun. Once again, that is
and typical.
Yeah, yep. It's coming. Pam Bondi is toast. She is absolutely toast. And now we're going to get a guy who's even more magnified. And think about this. Where are my MAGAs at now? They were screaming holy high hell and waters about Joe Biden and his weaponized DOJ. But I guess it's okay if it's not weaponized DOJ if you're going after your political foes. I'm confused. Can you enlighten me?
Well, good point. I mean, isn't what they mean by weaponized is that the White House and the Department of Justice is using their power to go after political enemies? That's what the Trump administration and the Trump campaign accused the Biden administration of. Our president has flat out fucking admitted it. Like, why are you not going after these people? Why are you not investigating them? Like, whatever,
And Steve,
but what about Biden?
You know what? You have an excellent merchandise opportunity. You must get out some Steve plushie bears, where you squeeze the little belly and it screams out. What about you have? Take my money right now. Take my Soros dollars and whatever you want to take from me, and let's get those to market right now.
That's a sensational idea. The plushie bear that says, "What about Biden?" That's like I love that idea. Holy shit, I love that idea.
You could put it. Yes, it would work. I would give you my last silver dollar, and yes, I still have silver dollars for you old school people. I still have them. Don't worry, I still got them. We got rid of the penny, but I still got silver dollars. But please remind me, like all this administration has done. If I ever hear the words 2 weeks, I'm going to slam my big head into this wall over there. You can't see it, but there's a wall over there. I am so tired about 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Yesterday was 2 to 3 weeks. 2 weeks. Our troops are sitting there on the front line saying, "Hey, can we come home? What's the time frame on this?" These are American lives that are on the line, and the president literally got up there and fluffed his little whatever that thing is on his head, that hair on his head, and said, "You know what? We've obliterated them, and then but 2 weeks. We can be done this in 2 weeks." Ah, goodness gracious.
Yeah, I hear you, bro.
All right, but I'll let you get back to your show, partner.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you very much. Have a good day. Be safe out there. Yeah, the what about Biden plushie? Holy shit, that's fucking hilarious. I love that idea. Yeah, stuffy tacos at Scream. What about Biden? Exactly. Hi, Rhonda. How are you today? Rhonda? Help me, Rhonda. Help me, Rhonda. I guess not. Okay. All right. So, I guess we'll see where this goes. So from Di's perspective, we'll get that ruling. And she brought up a really good point. We literally found out like at the 12th hour on the last day of the session in regards to the immunity decision. I think all of us were stunned by that. Like I was like stunned. I could not believe that they did what they did. Yes, there's nuance to it. And yes, it said, okay, as long as they're acting in the capacity as the office of the president, personal litigation or personal criminal violations do not count. You can't use your immunity to commit crimes. Has to be a plushy Cheeto. Oh, that's even better. A plushy Cheeto with a little tuft of hair on the top that says, what about Biden? Love that idea. Okay, let's get back to a few other things. Friends, if you wouldn't mind, continue to drive. Help us out with with our goal towards, maybe we can we hit 9K today? Can we hit 10K today? That'd be awesome. That would be a big benchmark for us. Let me just check over here real quick. A couple of shout outs. Tapping is clapping, friends. Tapping is clapping, liking is loving, sharing is caring. We need your help to get out there. That's really, really important. Amy, thank you so much. Amy says, thank you for your journalism. Thank you, Amy, for saying that. I appreciate that. Let's respect the press. That's a great thing. You support your favorite independent journalists everywhere because we're out here doing the work, trying to navigate through this shit. And I'm glad that Di said what she said about that PBR. Ha! That's funny. PBS NPR case. I don't think it gets enough attention, which is why we spent a lot of time on it yesterday, because this is a complete First Amendment violation. You can't be denying funding. And the judge said, sorry, bro, you're just wrong. And yes, she's right. They will appeal it. I can't see how you would allow freedom of the press and the administration saying we're not going to fund this press agency. Their only argument has been they don't like the reporting. So, yeah, there's that. Okay, let's get into a few other things here. Actually, I've got one more sound I want to play. Again, this is from the SCOTUS blog. This is kind of piggyback on what Di talked about. Like I said, I like her as a creator. She offers a similar perspective, just with a little bit of a different angle.
Right case today. Yes, Trump was there. No, he did not have a special seat. He actually was on the front row of the public section, and he was there for about an hour and 23 minutes by my count. He left about 10 minutes after the ACLU began their argument. I know a lot of people suggested that Trump up and left in the middle of oral argument because he was losing or it was a really tough argument. I don't think that's true for two reasons. First, I wouldn't have expected him to stay for the entire thing to begin with. It was over 2 hours long, and that's a really long time for a president to be away from his phone and electronics and the world, much less for anyone else to be away for that long. Perhaps that's why presidents haven't.
Hang on a second. I need to pause because I just read something in our mod chat. The person who does our backgrounds every single day, I've talked about him as one of the most kind, honest, hardworking, amazing individuals that I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. I remember when we first met in this space, we call him Legend for a reason. His name is Gregory, and I just learned that he is now a grandfather. Legend, my man, we are so fucking happy for you. Congratulations to you and your amazing family. You are Peepaw. So we might have to change your name. Legend is Peepaw, or Peepaw is Legend. Love you, bro. Congratulations. What an amazing thing. What an absolutely amazing thing. Absolutely beautiful. I hope everybody's happy and healthy. And we need to put together a little bundle for the new little bundle. Congratulations, bro. We love you, man. Congratulations. That's fucking awesome.
Chosen to go sit in the Supreme Court for oral argument. It can be long and boring, and you're away from all of your electronics and your phone. Two, oral argument is tough questioning. That's what happens. Yes, they were asking really tough questions of the Solicitor General, but that's what oral argument is for. That's what the justices do, often of both.
Somebody just said, what about Biden onesie? That has to happen too.
sides. That being said, I believe a majority of the justices are prepared to side with the ACLU and against the Trump administration in this case. You can watch SCOTUS Blog's live recap after the oral argument for all of the finer details, but I will say I think the Chief Justice had perhaps the line of the day or the term or the year or the decade when the Solicitor General was arguing, look, we're in a new world now, very different from the time when the 14th Amendment was ratified in the 19th century. In this new world, there are 8 billion people in the world, any one of which are just one plane ride away from having a child who is a U.S. citizen. And the chief said, well, it may be a new world, but it's the same Constitution. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who may be a key vote in this majority, suggested it could be a very simple decision where the Supreme Court just decides to affirm itself from over a century ago in a case called Wong Kim Ark. I've talked about it on previous videos, but in that case, the Supreme Court said that the child born on U.S. soil of 2 Chinese nationals was a U.S. citizen. There were also some unexpected practical questions during argument today. Part of the government's argument turns on whether someone is domiciled in the United States. Domicile is a legal term of art that means living here with the intention to stay here. Yeah. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson asked, how are you actually going to determine that? Are you planning?
How would you know that? Like, how would you know? Like, what do you sign a statement of attestation, say, I'm going to stay here for 25 years? What does that even mean? Is that saying then we're not going to grant you the citizenship if you decide at some point you want to live abroad? That's fucked up.
Government to depose pregnant women about whether they intend to stay here. And Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who was one of Trump's appointees, also brought up the important point that determining whether someone is domiciled here is actually a really tough question sometimes. That is the subject of litigation and even goes to trial. And she said, you're not always going to know at birth whether someone intends to stay here. So how are you going to figure that out? And the Solicitor General said that agencies could provide guidance on that point. But I don't think that satisfied the justices. We'll likely get a decision in the case by late June or early July. Drop your other questions in the comments. I was inside the courtroom for the birthright case today.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's a really, I mean, again, similar to the arguments that Attorney Dye had. I just can't see how they would. I'm never going to say never with this court, but it is very interesting. It's funny because, as we know, the president was there. So then he goes back to the White House afterwards, and I've got some sound I have to play for that. So let's follow the thread line here. Everybody keep tapping and sharing, please, and thank you very much. So this is what the president had to say about his experience at the court. You could tell Mr. Orange Poopy Pants is angry.
And justices, they always want to show that they're independent. I don't care if Trump appointed me. I don't care if he doesn't make any difference to me. I'm voting against him because they want to show their independence. You know, stupid people.
Oh, well. One more time.
Republicans, judges, and justices, they always want to show that they're independent. I don't care if Trump appointed me. I don't care if he doesn't make any difference to me. I'm voting against him because they want to show their independence. You know, stupid people.
So that there, friends, is the ultimate loyalty test. His expectation was, I put you on the court. I expect you to vote and rule in my favor. Hey, MAGA, come a little closer. That's not how the legal system works. Judges are supposed to rule on legality. Judges are supposed to make decisions apolitically. Judges are supposed to do their job and judge. Judges are not supposed to be cucks. Okay? Yvonne, you just literally read my mind. That's why we have protests like No Kings. Because kings and monarchs and dictators and autocrats and authoritarians expect that. They expect their judges to do what they to do what they're told. So that's not how our system works. Now, you can say the Supreme Court is compromised and I don't trust Thomas or Alito at all. because we certainly know of their connections. Don't forget Clarence Thomas has a connection to Opus Dei, you know, those kinds of things. Alito is Alito. There's conversations about whether or not Alito is going to retire. He's got a book that's coming out, and I believe the timing of his book coincides with the next term of the SCOTUS, sometimes before the fall. Now, a year ago, you would never have thought about that. I think Supreme Court judges, by and large, have massive fucking egos. They think they would have to, you know, to be like, I am a Supreme Court justice. I'm one of the Supremes. I'm one of 9 people to make decisions that will affect generations. I hold a lot of fucking power. So there's obviously a lot of ego connected to it, right? A year and a half ago or a year ago, there was no chance in hell that the Democrats could take back the Senate. The reason that's important is because federal judge nominations, including the Supreme Court, goes through the Senate. And very rarely do you see a situation where, unless you're Mitch McConnell, very rarely do you see a situation where a presidential appointee doesn't get confirmed to the court or to the bench. Now that the writing is on the wall, there's a very strong likelihood, 50-50, 50-50, maybe even 55-45, for Democrats taking the Senate. It's a real possibility. If that happens and Alito retires, then the Supreme Court is down a member for a while. Don't know. Yeah, Aileen Cannon. I've heard that name. I've heard that name mentioned. I've literally heard that name mentioned. I've heard Ted Cruz's name mentioned as well. Now, I don't think Ted Cruz would necessarily be sycophantically loyal, but Aileen Cannon, she absolutely fucking would. No doubt about it. So as a reminder, as we are talking about decisions that you all make regarding your elections, keep in mind, it's not just about the president or your senator or your representative or your mayor. It's about the Supreme Court. And in my vision of America, when I talk about the trickle-up economic model in support of the matriarchy, prioritizing the things that should matter, that need to matter, that have to matter, healthcare, food, water, shelter, expansion of rights, progressive politics in general. The only hope that we have to get those things is if we have some say so on the Supreme Court. So your vote in this fall and your vote in 2028, Supreme Court, keep that in mind, all right? Focus on that. That is the prize that we're shooting for. So for the president to go back home and then be all bitchy and moany and whiny about how the fact that he didn't get his way, didn't stomp his feet, he might as well have just gotten out of his seat, walked up in front of the justice, lifted his leg and ripped one, because that's basically the same thing. Because, again, I think it's precedent. I don't ever recall a time when a sitting president went to the Supreme Court and sat there. I don't, maybe that's happened. Maybe somebody would know. I don't know. But here's where we sit. Here's where we sit. It's a very interesting day in the body politic. Okay. I want to. These are some of the highlights. Well, I want to do this now. Where do I want to go with this? Okay, let's do this. As we're talking about healthcare, okay. Actually, before I do that, I don't want you guys to get sick of the Do Something promo that we play, but I think it's important because I pick up new followers every single day. So some folks who join us here, may not have heard this. So if you just bear with me, I just want to play our Do Something tour promo piece because I think it's important. Again, at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is shift the narrative in our country and make sure people are paying attention and to tell you what the Do Something tour is. So here you go. Honest. A lot of people in this country are tired. Not just busy tired. I mean soul tired. Tired of working hard and still feeling like they're falling behind. Tired of watching the news and feeling powerless. Tired of hearing promises every election season and then watching nothing change. And if you've ever felt like your vote doesn't matter, like your voice doesn't count, I want you to know something. You're not alone, and you're not wrong for feeling that way. Because when you feel ignored long enough, you stop believing anyone is listening. And when you stop believing anyone is listening, you stop showing up. But here's what I've learned in my life. The moment that good people stop showing up is the moment the wrong people take over the room. That's why I'm launching something called the Do Something Tour. Not because I think I have the answers, not because I'm here to tell anyone what to think, but because I believe we're losing something precious in this country, and that's our faith in each other. I'm going to travel the country to sit down with people who feel forgotten, people who feel dismissed, people who feel like the system is built for someone else. And I'm going to listen. I want to hear what broke your trust. I want to hear what you've lived through. I want to hear what you wish the people in power actually understood about your life. Because the truth is, democracy is not a speech. It's not a slogan. It's not something that happens once every 4 years. Democracy is people. It's parents trying to keep their kids safe. It's workers trying to keep food on the table. It's communities trying to stay whole. It's people who don't want to be a headline. They just want to be okay. And I know this. If we want change, we can't just hope for it. We have to participate in it. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm not asking you to know every issue. I'm not asking you to trust politicians. I'm asking you to trust your own worth. To remember that your voice matters, even if it's been ignored. To remember that your vote matters, even if it hasn't felt like it has. And to remember that your presence matters, because this country belongs to you, too. So this is my invitation. Come back in, not because the system deserves you, but because your community does. Your kids do. Your future does. This is the Do Something Tour. And if you've ever felt powerless, I want you to hear me clearly. You still have power. So, let's do something. Together. Please follow along. The Instagram link is in the bio, and if you want to support the channel, you can do so. Okay, so a few other things that came out of last night's little moment that the president had back at his. First of all, let me thank a few people. I want to thank Gregory. I want to thank Sam. I want to thank our friend Gravedigger. I want to thank Chris Lewis. I want to thank a whole bunch of people who helped put that little promo together. So thank you. This was a moment as we're talking about what if we treated healthcare like defense spending. As you know, our defense budget currently sits just under $1 trillion, right? And the Department of Defense has asked for an additional $200 billion, okay? This was the president last night, okay, talking to the American people after he got his feelings hurt by getting, embarrassed at the Supreme Court because his judges, as he puts it, didn't do what he wanted them to do. So now he's talking about why it's so important to focus on the military. This is some wild fucking shit. Hold on. I've got a better sound. I have a better sound bite. That is called missing the moment, Steve. That's fine. I've got a better example of a soundbite for that anyway. I think somewhere. Yeah, here you go.
For daycare.
Hold on a second.
Any money for daycare because the United States can't take care of daycare. That has to be up to a state.
Oh.
We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it, too. They should pay. They have to raise their taxes, but they should pay for it. And we could lower our taxes a little bit to them to make up for, but it's not possible for us to take care of daycare.
Yeah. Medicaid, Medicare, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's great. I'm just
2 decades.
I'm so glad the president is looking out for us. We can't afford daycare, Medicare, Medicaid, all those kinds of things. States can just raise taxes. That's totally fine. It got me thinking back to when he was campaigning, when he talked about childcare. So I have the text. I'm going to ask you guys, I could read it to you and I could use the little filter that I use for Trump's voice. Would that be okay with you if I did that? Because I have the text, the verbatim text. I'd like to read it to you. If you are okay with that, I'd like to do that because I think the best way to speak to the words that Trump says is through a fucking bullshit noise adjusting filter because it sounds so childish. So the president was asked a very pointed question about childcare. The question was, let me see if I can find it exactly. President Trump, you talked about how the increase in the price of food, gas, and rent is hurting families. This was prior to the election. This was in September of 2024. You talked about how the increase in price of food, gas, and rent is hurting families. But the real cost that's breaking families' backs and preventing women from participating in the workforce is childcare. Childcare is now more expensive than rent for working families and is costing the economy more than $122 billion annually, making it one of the most urgent economic issues that is facing our country. In fact, the cost of childcare is outpacing the cost of inflation, with the majority of American families of young children spending more than 20% of their income on childcare. One thing that Democrats and Republicans have in common is that both parties talk a lot about what they're going to do to address the childcare crisis, but neither party has delivered meaningful change. If you win in November, can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable? And if so, what specific types of legislation will you advance?
Well, I would do that. And we're sitting down, we had Senator Marco Rubio and my daughter Ivanka were so impactful on that issue. It's a very, very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, because look, childcare is childcare. It's something you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it. But when you talk about those numbers compared to the kind of numbers that I'm talking about by taxing foreign nations at levels that they're not used to, but they'll get used to it very quickly, and it's not going to stop them from doing business with us, but they'll have a very substantial tax when they send product into our country. Those numbers are so much bigger than any numbers that we're talking about, including childcare, that it's going to take care. We're going to have, I look forward to having no deficits within a fairly short period of time, coupled with the reductions that I told you about on waste and fraud and abuse and all of the other things that are going on in our country. Because I have to say, with childcare, I want to stay with childcare, but those numbers are small relative to the kind of economic numbers that I'm talking about, including growth. But growth also headed up by what the plan is that I just told you about. We're going to be taking in trillions of dollars, and as much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, it's, relatively speaking, not very expensive compared to the kind of numbers we'll be taking in. We're going to make this into an incredible country that can afford to take care of its people, and then we'll worry about the rest of the world. Let's help other people, but we're going to take care of our country first. This is about America first. It's about making America great again. We have to do it, because right now we're a failing nation, so we'll take care of it. Thank you very much. Good question.
What? What? When that came out, I did a staged reading as if it was a Shakespearean prose, and I said it with candlelight, and I had I was like a hood over my head. It was kind of funny. I thought it was, but anyway, the point is that he is speaking there. You can call it speaking in terms of America First priorities. And you just heard the president from the sound that I played from last night. We can't do childcare. We can't do it because we got to pay for wars. We can't do health care because we have to pay for wars. We can't do education reform because we have to do wars. We can't provide a social safety net because we have to give our corporate donors tax breaks so we can pay for wars. You heard it. That is your president. Doesn't give a flying fuck about any of you. MAGA, he doesn't care. Like I said, we showed images of the new fucking museum, the library. Sorry, Brooke. The library in Miami that's going to be a hotel. Right? If it's a great point. If bait and switch was a person, Not reducing the deficit. None of that shit. One fucking lie after another. I'm glad I found that text because it speaks to it. Right? It speaks to exactly what we're talking about. Again, friends, I don't want you to worry. I don't want you to worry about your rising costs. I don't want you to worry about any of it because we're going to have the Trump library. We're going to have it. We're going to have the Trump library. Again, I don't want you to worry, though, because if things get really, really bad, you can go and invest in some Trump merch. The U.S. Mint printing coins. And don't forget, also, starting in June, they're going to be putting the president's signature on a $100 bill. But that's fine. Nothing to see here. We can't do childcare, though. We can't pass healthcare reform. We know the Republicans, an executive order, the president wants to just do away with the ACA. I rhymed there. See what I did? Oh, and his ballroom, of which a judge just said, bro, you can't fucking do the ballroom. Sorry, it's not your house. As a matter of fact, think about this. Yes, he's the president. But when he leaves, we have just as much right to that building as he does. It's our house. It's not his. It doesn't belong to him. And that's what the court told him. And he's angry. But again, don't worry, though. We can't have childcare. It's fine because we have another war that we have to pay for. That's fine. Nothing to see here. It is the 104th day that the Donald Trump administration, the federal government, is breaking the law and not releasing everything that's been redacted in the Epstein files. The 104th day this administration has circled the wagons to protect fucking predators, of which our president is one. But don't worry, there's a library on the radar. There's newly minted coins on the radar. There's signatures on $100 bills on the radar. But don't worry, you're fine. No plan to go to the Middle East. No plan at all. No fucking plan at all. But the Dow. Yep, exactly. Speaking of healthcare, this is Caroline Leavitt answering a question on that very topic. Here you go. Don't forget, Caroline, who the president just said is doing a shitty fucking job.
There are reports that Republicans are weighing cuts to health care in order to make way for that $200 billion for the Pentagon and Operation Epic Fury. Is that a trade-off that President Trump supports?
I've seen these reports. I haven't spoken to the president about it, nor have I heard this being discussed in any high-level meetings here at the White House. I don't want to weigh in definitively because I just haven't heard that being discussed here in the West Wing.
Okay. Remember all the kerfuffling that Mike Johnson said, we are looking out for the American people? You know, we are doing everything we can for the American people. Can anybody, MAGA, can any of you be objective and tell me that anything that this president has done in his first term and in this term that is about America first? It's certainly not another war. A war that's not a war. That's a war, right? Okay, just making sure. It's bad when you lose Joe Rogan. So he was on his podcast recently, and this is what he had to say about MAGA.
Like, first of all, America is great. Make America greater, I'm down. But make America great again, and then it becomes a movement of a bunch of fucking dorks. Because a lot of them are dorks. A lot of them these really weird, fucking uninteresting, unintelligent people that have got something they cling to. And there's a lot of people that are just real, genuine patriots. And they're all lumped into this one group, and you got to accept the dorks too. Fuck that.
Yeah. The phrase "Make America Great Again." I don't care. Then
but
fine.
If that phrase sucks, here's the thing. Like, first of all, America is great. Make America greater, I'm down. But make America great again, and then it becomes a movement of a bunch of fucking dorks. Because a lot of them are dorks.
Yeah. So Joe's gone. Candace Owens is gone. Nick Fuentes is gone. Ben Shapiro's kind of on the edge. All of his, his core fucking, sycophants in the right-wing spaces are all abandoning him. Alex Jones said, we need to be sad about Trump. This is not funny. This is not good, but he's gone, and that's it. Tucker Carlson is gone. His poll numbers are in the fucking shitter. He has the lowest approval rating on the aggregate of any sitting president. Full stop. 33% approval. Two things. Who the fuck are those 33%? Some of you are in the chat today. Do you want to stand 10 toes down as a member of the 33%? Do you want to come in here and defend your president? Like I said, I was on that C-SPAN call last night, and I was listening to some of these people and thinking, how can we be watching the same speech? How is it possible that we're watching the same speech? You've heard it. The president saying no inflation, the hottest country on earth. None of that is fucking true. None of it is true. Absolutely none of it. And you've lost Joe Rogan. And he's got a powerful voice. The question is, with his platform now, is he going to support, the counter programming, so to speak? You guys are going to hear me talk about that a lot because I am invested in creating an environment of counter programming. And hopefully you guys think that this, what we do here is counter programming. All we try to do here is to say, okay, this is what he said, this is what he promised, this is what this means, and this is the impact. That's kind of been our philosophy on this entire thing when we do our show. Like we tell you guys, we would rather be last than correct and first than wrong when it comes to breaking news. We're going to analyze shit. I'm going to share my opinions. I'm going to back it up. So that's our counter programming to what we see. The problem is Brandolini's law, right? When somebody tells a lie, when the president tells a lie, standing there last night during that speech, right? That we are the hottest country on earth and there's no inflation. I heard people, when I was waiting to be up on C-SPAN, I heard people say it. The president was doing everything he promised. Everything he promised, keeping America safe, short-term pain, long-term gain, blah, fucking blah. It takes a lot of work to debunk that shit. A lot of work. We are insolvent. Our country's fucking bankrupt, just past $39 trillion in debt. When it was Biden in office, he was to blame. Now that Trump's in office, Biden is still to blame. Do you understand why we refer to you guys as the cult? No, you probably don't, because you're a bunch of dorks, according to Joe Rogan. Okay, shifting gears a little bit. There's a letter that came out. I was contemplating how I wanted to approach this, but the Iranian president has made a statement, and he wrote a letter to the American public. I want to be very, very, very clear here. I am not picking sides in this well, let me rephrase this. What I am calling out is the hypocrisy and the lack of transparency from our government. And there is a response here that I think is necessary as we cover the news. So this is from the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian. I'm not exactly sure that's the correct pronunciation. But he sent this out this morning, okay? And I'm just going to read it to you, all right? This is from the president of Iran. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, to the people of the United States of America and to all those who, amid a flood of distortions and manufactured narratives, continue to seek the truth and aspire to a better life. Iran, by its very name, character, and identity, is one of the oldest continuous civilizations in human history. Despite its historical and geographical advantages at various times, Iran has never in its modern history chosen the path of aggression, expansion, colonialism, or domination, even after enduring occupation, invasion, and sustained pressure from global powers. And despite possessing military superiority over many of its neighbors, Iran has never initiated a war. Yet it has resolutely and bravely repelled those who have attacked it. The Iranian people harbor no animosity toward other nations, including the people of America, Europe, or neighboring countries. Even in the face of repeated foreign interventions and pressures throughout their proud history, Iranians have consistently drawn a clear distinction between governments and the people they govern. This is a deeply rooted principle in Iranian culture and collective consciousness, not a temporary political stance. For this reason, portraying Iran as a threat is neither consistent with historical reality nor with present-day observable facts. Such a perception is the product of political and economic whims of the powerful. The need to manufacture an enemy in order to justify pressure, maintain military dominance, sustain the arms industry, and control strategic markets in such an environment, if a threat does not exist, is invented. Within this same framework, the United States has concentrated the largest number of its forces, bases, and military capabilities around Iran, a country that, at least since the founding of the U.S., has never initiated a war. Recent American aggressions launched from these very bases have demonstrated how threatening such a military pressure truly is. Naturally, no country confronted with such conditions would forego strengthening its own defensive capabilities. What Iran has done and continues to do is a measured response, grounded in legitimate self-defense and by no means an initiation of war or aggression. Relations between Iran and the U.S. were not originally hostile, and early interactions between the Iranian and American people were not marred with hostility or tensions. The turning point, however, was the 1953 coup d'etat, an illegal American I talk about this part a lot. What our friends on the right to justify, they only talk about the revolution in 1979. That's what they don't talk about anything before that. Just a level set. The turning point, however, was the 1953 coup d'etat, an illegal American intervention aimed at preventing the nationalization of Iran's own oil resources. The coup disrupted Iran's democratic process, reinstated dictatorships, and sowed deep distrust among Iranians toward U.S. policies. This trust deepened further with American support for the Shah's regime, its backing of Saddam Hussein during the imposed war of the 1980s, the imposition of the longest and most comprehensive sanctions in modern history, and ultimately unprovoked military aggression twice in the midst of negotiations against Iran. Yet, all these pressures have failed to weaken us. On the contrary, the country has grown stronger in many areas. Literacy rates have tripled from roughly 30% before the Islamic Revolution to over 90% today. Higher education has expanded dramatically. Significant advances have been achieved in modern technology. Healthcare services have improved, and infrastructure has developed at a pace and scale incomparable to the past. These are measurable, observable realities that stand independent of fabricated narratives. At the same time, the destructive and inhumane impact of sanctions, war, and aggression on the lives of the resilient Iranian people must not be underestimated. The continuation of military aggression and recent bombings profoundly affect people's lives, attitudes, and perspectives. This reflects a fundamental human truth. When war inflicts irreparable harm on lives, homes, cities, and futures, people will not remain indifferent toward those responsible. This raises a fundamental question. Exactly which of the American people's interests are truly being served by this war? Was there any objective threat from Iran to justify such behavior? Does the massacre of innocent children, the destruction of cancer treatment pharmaceutical facilities, or boasting about bombing a country back to the Stone Age serve any purpose other than further damaging the United States' global standing? Iran pursued negotiations, reached an agreement, and fulfilled its commitments. The decision to withdraw from that agreement, escalate toward confrontation, and launch 2 acts of aggression in the midst of negotiations were destructive choices made by the U.S. government, choices that serve the delusions of a foreign aggressor. Attacking Iran's vital infrastructure, including energy and industrial facilities, directly targets the Iranian people. Beyond constituting a war crime, such actions can carry consequences that extend far beyond Iran's borders. They generate instability, increase human and economic costs, and perpetuate cycles of tension, planting seeds of resentment that will endure for years. This is not a demonstration of strength. It is a sign of strategic bewilderment and an inability to achieve a sustainable solution. It is not also the case that America has entered this aggression as a proxy for the I country, influenced and manipulated by that regime. Is it not true that Israel, by manufacturing an Iranian threat, seeks to divert global attention away from its crimes towards Palestine? Is it not evident that Israel now aims to fight Iran to the last American soldier and the last American taxpayer dollar, shifting the burden of its delusions into Iran, the region, and the U.S. itself in pursuit of illegitimate interests? Is America first truly among the priorities of this U.S. government today? I invite you to look beyond the machinery of misinformation, an integral part of this aggression, and instead speak with those who have visited Iran. Observe the many accomplished Iranian immigrants educated in Iran, who now teach and conduct research at the world's most prestigious universities or contribute to the most advanced technology firms in the West? Do these realities align with the distortions you are being told about Iran and its people? Today, the world stands at a crossroads. Continuing along the path of confrontation is more costly and futile than ever before. The choice between confrontation and engagement is both real and consequential. Its outcome will shape the future for generations to come. Throughout its millennia of proud history, Iran has outlasted many aggressors. All that remains of them are tarnished names in history, while Iran endures, resilient, dignified, and proud. Pretty powerful letter. Again, that's from the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian's letter to the American public. Now, it's like, propaganda? Maybe. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. But he's right about so much of it. He's right about so much of it. This is what our conservative friends don't ever talk about. You know, the people who are anti-war but are suddenly cheering it on. They don't talk about the coup. They don't talk about how the United States and Iran had a working relationship. I wouldn't say that we were friends, but we were economic partners. We were trading partners. We were intelligence partners. We worked together. We had a solid relationship. And then the Iranian government, a duly elected prime minister. I think I have the timeline. Let's just take a moment here. I'll redirect. Let's see here. I think it's worthwhile to spend a little bit of time on this, since it's a great letter. Let's see if I can find it. I stored this file thinking that I would use it again, but I just want to make sure that I've got it correct. Okay. So it goes back. The U.S. and Iran, this is before 1953, the U.S. and Iran were generally friendly with no major conflicts. Iran was strategically important. This is from a combination of history, this is from Wiki, this is from Reuters, a whole bunch of stories that are referenced here. The U.S. and Iran were generally friendly with no major conflicts. Iran was strategically important because of oil and its location near the Soviet Union during the Cold War. Between 1951 and 1953, Iran's democratically elected prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, nationalized Iran's oil industry, angering Britain and us. So, in 1953, the United States CIA backed a coup. The U.S. and Britain orchestrated a coup that overthrew Mossadegh and restored the Shah to power. The Shah ruled with strong U.S. support for the next 26 years. The U.S. gained a Cold War ally. Many Iranians saw the coup as foreign interference, creating long-term resentment. The letter that I just read from the president references this. We elected our leaders, okay? We democratically elected our leaders. We used to work together. We were trading partners. We decided our own resources. It's our country. We can do what we want. We chose to nationalize our oil industry. And because the West, Britain and the U.S. most importantly, decided that they didn't like that, so the CIA, along with British intelligence, organized a coup to overthrow the democratically elected president or prime minister of Iran and replaced him with a hand-picked puppet to do the bidding of Western nations, the Shah. During this period, Iran became one of America's strongest allies in the Middle East. The U.S. provided military aid, economic assistance, and intelligence support. Iran bought large numbers of American weapons and cooperated against Soviet influence. However, the Shah's government was authoritarian. His secret police, or Savak, supported by the U.S., suppressed dissent. Many Iranians blame the U.S. for supporting repression. Obviously, we're talking about this interventionism. What it does, it creates generations of hatred. So, of course, people are going to be like, listen, or sons and daughters of people who were suppressed are saying, our country, my parents lived through the time when the CIA intervened in our country. And here we are. And of course I hate you. You imprisoned my family. You unalived my family. The Savak police rounded up people and killed innocent people for dissent. Of course I'm going to hate the people who did it. Why? Exactly, Dano. We breed our own enemies. Exactly. Generations. Do you think future generations of Iranians are going to be happy that the United States blew up a fucking school or took the lives of innocent Iranian citizens? This whole thing it's just this one fucking cycle that repeats itself. And the president of Iran called it out, saying, listen, we used to get along. We have no resentment towards the American people. We just want to live our fucking lives. You guys are the ones that keep sticking your fucking nose in here. Keep in mind, Bibi tried to get Obama and Biden to bite on his lies. And they both said, no, we're not doing this. There's no reason to do this. He got Trump to do it, though. All he had to do was stroke Trump's ego and probably dangle the fucking Epstein files over his head. The Shah's government was authoritarian. His secret police, supported by the U.S., suppressed dissent and unalived thousands of Iranian citizens for their dissent. And then many Iranians blamed the U.S. for supporting suppression, which then led to the Islamic Revolution between 1979 and 1981. The Iranian Revolution overthrew the Shah. The Ayatollah created an Islamic Republic hostile to the U.S. The reason that they overturned the Shah, the reason that they kicked him out of the country, was because he was handpicked by Western countries to put in place. I would like to ask our friends on the right, try to imagine a scenario. You democratically elected the president, and then there was a plot by a foreign nation to stick its nose in. We're going to overthrow this government. And we're going to handpick someone who's loyal to our cause. What the fuck would your reaction be? Well, what would you do? Would you just sit by and take it? Most of you probably would, because you're promised something. Would you literally just sit by and allow that to happen, or be happy with it, or be comfortable with it, or just live in it? Of course not. And then in 1979, the Iranian students seized the U.S. embassy, held 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. If you are Gen X, you remember that so vividly. Like, you remember the pictures of the sheets over the faces of the students, a video of Iranian students climbing the walls, 444 days, all kinds of connections to the Reagan administration, the incoming Reagan administration, because you remember on Inauguration Day, January 20th, 1981, Ronald Reagan famously at his lunch said, I'm happy to report that the students have been released. That was a slap in the face of Jimmy Carter. He took a lot of heat for that. Anyway, the students were captured. Then the U.S. broke diplomatic relations with Iran in 1980. The impact, it permanently transformed the relationship into open hostility. In 1980, the U.S. supported Iraq directly to contain Iran. 1988, the U.S. shoots down the Iranian passenger plane. The USS Vincennes shot down Iran Flight 655, killing 290 civilians. 2002, Axis of Evil. President George W. Bush labeled Iran part of the Axis of Evil. So in less than 20 years, the United States supported Iraq in their fight against Iran, and then WMDs. So the United States military-industrial complex in foreign policy has been playing both sides. You guys know that, right? And thank you for calling that out. Republican leaders had done that. Okay. 2000s, nuclear tension rise. Iran developed nuclear technology. The U.S. feared Iran was pursuing nuclear weapons. Never been any evidence of that at all. Never been. I would like to throw this out there. Bibi Netanyahu and the Israeli government, when I talk about the I country, I'm speaking specifically to the Israeli government, headlined by Bibi. They have nukes. They have not been transparent about how many they have, where they are, or what their status is. And yet, they're the ones that are criticizing other countries in the region who want nukes? This is the hypocrisy that we're talking about, okay? 2015, the JCPOA. Iran agrees to limit its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. It was a popular decision. Very, very popular decision. Very popular. 2018, under the Trump administration, the U.S. withdrew from the deal and reimposed sanctions. Barack Obama, as part of the negotiation, gave them their money back plus interest. It was their money. That was part of the deal. Listen, if you restrict and you limit your development, whatever that might be, even though it wasn't towards weapons grade, then yeah, we'll release your money. It's not like he gave them $1.7 billion. It was their fucking money. It was held in offshore accounts. I think it was at one point it was held in Qatar. I think at one point it was held in South Korea. 2020, the U.S. unalived General Soleimani, dramatically increasing tensions. Don't forget, Iran responded and missiles hit near a base in the Middle East. I forget where. It might have been in the UAE. And a lot of the military members suffered traumatic brain injuries. And the president said, they're just headaches. Okay. Continued sanctions and proxy conflicts between 2020 and 2026. Nuclear tensions escalated after nuclear deal collapsed. And then military confrontations increased from 2025 to 2026. And here we are now. So what am I wrong about, Mary? I don't know what I'm wrong about there, but anyway. But Biden. So I guess the summary of what I'm trying to say here is that the America First agenda that the president promised his followers was never a promise that he was going to keep. Never. The lies that have been told in support of something that none of us understand. The fact that the American president and his administration have been sounding the same alarm for years, that Iran is the threat. Are they? Forget the president just recently said if we didn't bomb them last year, we would have already been nuked by now. Does anybody really fucking believe that? Because if that was the case, then why were we not nuked under Biden? Why were we not nuked under Trump the first time, or under Obama, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? We're the threat. I don't think anybody should have nuclear weapons. It's ridiculous. I don't think anybody should have them. They should all be gone off the face of the earth. But here we sit. Here we sit. And we're fighting for healthcare. And we're fighting for human rights. So I did a little bit of math on what an approach to how we would fund our healthcare system as opposed to what we're doing now. We've talked about this from an education reform perspective. We talked about this from a progressive society perspective. So let's check out the math. I'm really curious. All right, let me break this down for you guys. Let's see here. All right. So oftentimes, like I prompted ChatGPT and I asked it to provide sources. So it gave me Senate Appropriations, it gave me the Congressional Budget Office, it gave me the Kaiser Family Foundation. So what I'm going to kind of go through here for you is to say what could the prompt was, what would the American healthcare system look like if we spent half of our defense budget on it? Currently, the defense budget for FY26 is just under $900, right? So before I get into that, I want you to hear from Scott Perry. Scott Perry is a Trump sycophant. Scott Perry is one of the people that was involved in J6. Scott Perry's phone was one that was hacked, or I should say one that was seized through a subpoena, right? Nobody was spying on him, but he was having conversations with the White House on that infamous day. And this is what Scott Perry wants the American people to believe in regards to this $200 billion that the Department of Defense has been asking for.
Said it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. We represent our districts, and we understand. I support the president. I support this action, but at the same time, we've got to pay for this. So how is this going to be dealt with? I would actually like to see Iran pay for this, whether it's $20 billion or $200 billion, whatever it is.
What?
Look, they've been at war with us for 47 years, and it's finally being ended by the president, which is awesome. But it comes at a cost, and they have resources. They have been siphoning those resources away from their population for those 4.5 decades. And certainly they could pay that bill pretty quickly once things get up and running and the Ayatollah is no longer in charge. So I think that's an option that we need to pursue as well.
You want to see whatever this costs the U.S. taxpayer, whatever the Pentagon does come to you and ask for, to be offset by Iran?
Well, I think we got to pay for this somehow, right? We don't have endless money. I mean, it doesn't just come with the cost of conflict. I mean, everything in Congress that we pay for, people like me that don't want to bankrupt the country say, how are we going to pay for this? What are we going to do without so that we can have this? And unfortunately, in Washington, there are very few people that ask that question, which is how you end up $38 trillion in debt.
39.
But, you know, look, like I said, I support the president. We support the action. Iran has to be taken off the equation. We're sick of the terror. We're sick of being, living under the scourge of potentially nuclear war. We don't want to live like that. But all things come at a cost, so we have to be responsible with how we spend our money.
Yeah, the president.
We have to be responsible with how we spend our money. So Scott Perry thinks it's a good idea just to send the bill to Iran, that we're attacking them, we're killing their citizens, we're committing war crimes by going after civilian infrastructure, but we should just send them the bill because he says we can't afford to do this. And then the president says this.
Don't send any money for daycare because the United States can't take care of daycare. That has to be up to a state. We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it too.
Sure.
They should pay. They have to raise their taxes.
Right.
But they should pay for it. And we could lower our taxes a little bit to them to make up. But it's not possible for us to take care of daycare.
Right. And they're forcing women to have babies. Right. There was that court hearing just recently where a woman's in labor and she had to zoom in to a court case in front of the fucking judge while she's in fucking labor to see if it's going to be okay for her to be treated. But we can't afford it, right? We can't, the United States of America in 2026 can't afford childcare? Scott Perry thinks we should send the bill to fucking Iran? We spend $1 billion a day or more. $39 trillion in debt. The most significant debt increases added to our national debt and the deficit is under the first Trump administration, soon followed by the second. But we can't afford it. We can't afford childcare. We can't afford health care. Okay. So, using the current fiscal year 2026 defense appropriation budget as a benchmark, half the defense budget would be roughly $420 billion per year. It's a huge amount of money, but it would not be enough to itself to turn the U.S. into a fully universal single-payer system. Total U.S. healthcare spending reached $5.3 trillion in 2024. I've talked about this. The for-profit health insurance industry will hit $7 trillion in spending by the end of next year. Okay? $419 billion would equal only about 7.9% of all healthcare spending. The CBO has estimated that under an illustrative single-payer system, federal health subsidies in 2030 would be $1.5 trillion to $3 trillion higher than under current law, which means half the defense budget would cover only a fraction of that shift. It would not create a Medicare for all model, but it would dramatically change what American healthcare feels like. What it could plausibly look like depends on how the money was used. If, for example, it was used to lower what patients pay directly, the system could become much less financially punishing. U.S. out-of-pocket spending was about $556 billion in 2024. So $419 billion is roughly 75% of that total. Again, U.S. out-of-pocket spending. I want people to hear this. United States out-of-pocket spending on healthcare. That's out of pocket. That's after your premiums. That's after your deductibles are met, after your copays. Your out-of-pocket spending is $500 billion fucking dollars. So $419 billion would cover 75% of that. In plain English, that amount is large enough to wipe out a very large share of deductibles, copays, and coinsurance if policymakers targeted patient cost sharing first. That's just half our defense budget. If used to expand public coverage, it could bring insurance to millions more people. The Kaiser Family Foundation says that there were 25.3 million uninsured people from the ages 0 to 64 in 2024, and $419 billion equals roughly 27 million average per person healthcare spending units at 2024 national spending levels. That does not mean you can literally insure 27 million people one for one, but it shows that funding is in the same order of magnitude as the uninsured population, meaning you could insure under our current system without changing it. There's still going to be deductibles, there's still going to be copays, but you could insure 27 million people. You could cover those that are uninsured. Again, that's a bridge too far. We can't afford that though, can we? Cool. If used to strengthen existing public programs, it would be transformative. It's about 37.5% Medicare spending in 2024 and about 45% of Medicaid spending in, it is about 37.5% of Medicare's 2024 spending and about 45% of Medicaid's 2024 spending. So instead of replacing the whole system, it could fund a major expansion of Medicaid eligibility, richer ACA subsidies, long-term care support, rural hospitals, maternal care, and mental health services, or dental, vision, hearing benefits in Medicare. So in practical terms, an America that redirected half its defense budget into healthcare might look more like this. Far fewer uninsured people, much lower deductibles and copays, stronger Medicaid and ACA coverage, better funding for rural hospitals and primary care, more mental health and addiction treatments, and less medical debt and fewer bankrupting bills. Again, what are we doing? President goes on the record and tells the American public that we can't afford childcare. Sometimes I don't even know how to answer. I don't even know how to address that. It's one of these things that is just so fucking blatantly criminal and diabolical to say the richest country on earth can't afford childcare for its citizens, can't afford to cover people, and yet we have to go back to the well and ask Congress for an additional $200 billion to feed the war machine? Miss me with your fucking bullshit. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Hello there.
Hello there. Good morning. I'm glad you said what you just said. Do you remember how we had a brief conversation about minesweepers?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And you were on one. You were on a minesweeper. Is that correct?
Yes. And I left out a pretty important piece of information. I volunteered to be on a minesweeper. So MAGA, clearly I have the testicular fortitude to do certain things. Do you? I want to bring something up because I didn't get to get all the facts together, but this is super important and speaks to the complete, I don't even know, like it's beyond incompetent, right? Okay. Yeah. So I'm the Secretary of Defense and I believe that I need to take a decisive action. Now, I would go to the Joint Chiefs of Staff and I would be like, hey, here's kind of nibbling, and everybody tap that screen. And please, why are we not at $9,000? Oh, hold on, timeout. By the way, Steve, I love you.
Sir. Yes, sir. I love you too, bro.
I need you to sit for a moment because I'm going to say something to you. Good boy. Do not fucking apologize to this audience about playing your promo for the Do Something tour. One, this is your platform that you built, and you are the one that's going out there. Never apologize for self-promotion. Don't do that again. We love you and we support you. You gotta like, hey, you get on my ass when I don't get shit done right, and I pay you to tell me these things. You're not paying me anything, but I love you. But don't do that, man. Like, come on. We are here to support you. Now, the time, my friends, is September 25th, 2025. Now, if I was the Secretary of Defense on September 25th, 2025, I do believe my name would be Pete Hegseth.
Correct.
That, by the way, I love that little tiny saxophone. It reminds me of Jack Black.
Yeah. It does.
Right. So that date is really important, and I know that it may not seem important to people, but I will do this as quickly as I can. That was the date of the decommissioning ceremony of the minesweepers we had in Bahrain. Okay. Now, we took them all out. So we have no actual minesweepers left. There are a couple of training ones. I think one is over in Sasebo in Japan, and I'm not quite sure where the other one is. I think two were also being repaired, right? They're old. We've been building minesweepers pretty steadily since the 80s. So the ones that were there in the Middle East were over 30 years old. And those little boats, that was a lot, right? It's a lot of hours and time. So Secretary Hegseth knew they were being decommissioned. Now, what also is known is that the world's worst ship ever built, the littoral ships, were supposed to take its place. These ships are literally so bad, the Navy doesn't want them because they don't do anything they're supposed to do. Now, here's where guys like Pete Hegseth are stupid. A minesweeper has a wooden hull, which makes sense because sea mines like metal. Care to guess what the LCS ships are made out of?
Metal.
Yes, correct. And
steel, probably.
And steel, yes. Hayes grade underway. And while they do have some minesweeping capabilities, I know you're going to find this hard to believe, they've never been tested.
Wow.
But the design of the ship, the design of the ship makes it impossible for them, even if they were tested, to clear the Straits of Hormuz because of the size of the boat. So they can't even do it. So we had ships that we decommissioned in 2025. Okay. We know that there's at least one or two in Japan. I believe it's Sasebo, maybe Yokosuka. I can't remember. It's probably most likely it's Yokosuka because that would make more sense. They didn't transition them to Bahrain, right? Just to at least have something there, right? The LCS ships have been transferred to the Fifth Fleet, but again, they've never been tested, and it's known that they can't perform the duties of clearing the straits. And yet the same Secretary of Defense refuses to answer any questions about this, won't talk about this, and now this all makes sense. The reason why they're asking for help isn't because we technically need it. It's because we got rid of all of the pieces of equipment that can do it. Think about that, right? Like we literally had a system in place. We knew it was important because we have been there with these since the 90s. This is something that's been going on for a very long time because the Strait is known to be a linchpin problem, right? And so we had to have active operations constantly sweeping and constantly doing all this stuff. So this has been going on just as a regular part of the Navy stuff that no one knows because it's fucking boring.
This might be a stupid question, but do some of our allies have minesweepers with wooden hulls?
Not that I know of. I think the UK used to have some, but I don't know if they kept them, right? Okay. Because again, we had so many there that we literally were able to just do 6 on, 6 off, right? So guys would work for 6 months, take the boat back, fix it for a month, and just constantly rotating through. I think it was like up to 6 at one point in time. So we didn't need anyone's help. And it was something that we decided to take on because of when I was there in the 90s. So this was kind of a result of just a continuing mission over there with the Fifth Fleet, right? I don't believe anybody else has them, right? One, because people don't put mines in waterways anymore, right? Like it's like so black and white World War II film. It's not even funny, right? I mean,
it's like the threat of it.
Yes.
Is kind of, it seems like that's what they're doing. They're using the threat of it to kind of bottleneck. And the thing that gets me is that Iran told the world, listen, if you attack us, this is what we're going to do. We're going to either use a fear-mongering campaign or whatever it might be, or the threats or actual mines. This is what we are going to do. This is our fucking leverage. So you would think that a competent military leadership would have then informed allies to say, this is what's happening. We're going to need your resources to try to build that coalition in advance. That did not happen. And now the president is scrambling.
Right. And the reason why we had them there was because Bahrain made certain conditions, right? You may have access to the waterway, you may have access to the port, but you're going to guard our ships. You're going to make sure the oil gets out, right? And so that was kind of our, like, okay, great. Now we have a place to position a Navy, and all we have to do is do Navy shit. Okay, so it seemed like a really logical and good deal for us, and not a shitty place to be stationed if you're in the Navy either, mind you.
Sure. Of course.
Now, I want to talk about just two more things, because I was listening to Di talk about the Supreme Court oral arguments.
Birthright citizen. Yeah, birthright citizenship.
Right, for birthright citizenship. Now, I just want to pull two threads, because I think these are kind of funny. I'm not in support of the domicile theory, right?
Right.
Okay. Love you, Jay. And by the way, I'd like to give a shout out to my wife, our wife, Jen, who, like her husband, has been on a weight loss journey. And Jen is way ahead of me. She has lost 10 pounds already. So hats off to our wife. Nice. Okay, so if the domicile theory is correct, this would require every single person not a naturally born United States citizen to be papered and documented.
Your papers, please.
Right? So think about it. The one thing they don't want to happen would literally, in that scenario, they would have to do it. Now, the other second thing that was really funny was that the Solicitor General mentioned people flying over here, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay, now let's think about this.
Birthright tourism or something.
Right.
Whatever you refer to it as, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Persons who overstay their visas the most are persons that come via airplanes.
Correct.
Okay. Was it not the position? Was it not the position of this administration that they want more white Europeans to come? What do you think they're going to make the Mayflower? Aren't they going to have to come by plane? Right.
Good point.
So yeah. Also, you do realize, Maggie, people can't fly here on a plane to have a baby. It's a pretty expensive thing to do. Right?
Yeah.
It's not like the bill's free.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Again, logic. We're talking about logic, though, Obi.
Right.
That's a problem.
So let's say that this is true. Let's say that this is true. Well, wouldn't it mean that the only way to fix the birth by aeroplane would mean we'd be forced to have universal health care?
That would help. Sure.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
So when you think the racists are all about racism, they're also all about stupidity, because even in their own arguments, they run counter to the narrative the administration that sent them out there to make these arguments has made publicly. So they're not even good at fear mongering. Now, imagine that at the end of it all, the last thing you have is fear mongering, and then you send a Solicitor General to the Supreme Court who clearly was not prepared for questions at all, which is shocking because I do not have to like the person, but he's pretty good at what he does.
Good lawyer, no doubt.
Yep. Right. But anyway, I just thought that was funny that
I agree.
Right. Yeah. Like this is awesome. Anyway, so I just wanted to pull that thread on the minesweepers because this is the stuff that really pisses me off. And this is not a vet bro thing. This is just like a logic thing. Like, hey, we have to have this fixed. And why is no one in the Pentagon talking about whatever the next class is? It was the Adventure class, which, by the way, is an awesome class name for ships.
Yeah, it is.
So like, why is in the $200 billion? Why aren't we talking about the fact that we actually still do? I know it's 2026, but we still need minesweepers because of Iran.
Yep.
Like that would be a legitimate good spend. It wouldn't cost $200 billion for 4 or 5 of them, but that would be like, I could get behind defense spending if it ever would for once make fucking sense, and it doesn't. Right?
It hasn't in decades.
Anyway, I love you very much.
I love you more, brother.
Thank you for having Dion. That breakdown.
It's great.
Was really good, and we should have a little Super Bowl square. You know what I'm talking about?
I sure do. Yeah, we should. Exactly. Yeah.
And by the way,
exactly
the Cheeto baby that can scream, "What about Biden?" I can't get the imagery out of my head.
Me neither.
Maybe one could be a fart button, and one could be a "What about Biden" button.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
Anyway,
yeah, my brain is spinning on that whole topic. I appreciate you, bro. Thanks for being
appreciate
here,
you. Peace out
later, man. I love you, bro. See ya. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, for case you're just joining us now, we're talking about new merch that would be a stuffed Cheeto with orange tufted hair that when you squeeze it can be your comfort toy. It will say, "What about Biden?" or whatever, or a Facts cozy pillow, right? And I know Mag we'll send all those to you in your Easter basket. So there's that. So all right. So I appreciate we talking about that. Again, when you have incompetent leaders, when you have people who have no fucking clue what they're doing other than chasing their Christian nationalist wet dream, then this is what you get. You get people like Pete Hegseth. You get people like, you get people like the president. You get people like all the other warmongers and Stephen Miller in the administration. I want you to hear, we're talking about Pete. You want to hear about the ultimate irony as we were just discussing. $200 billion being used that we can't afford childcare, but we can't afford $200 billion to expand our operations in the Gulf, even though nobody knows why the fuck we're there. You want to hear about the ultimate irony? I meant to play this yesterday. This was one of Pete's press conferences. Listen to this bullshit.
To that point on capabilities, Iran's an energy-rich country, should be. Instead,
okay, Iran's an energy-rich country. So is the U.S.
So many other places driven by a radical ideology, they've spent that money instead of investing in their people. And that's why you had millions of Iranians protesting, because they felt like their quality of life didn't match what it could be or should be. And what was the Iranian state? There's a reason we call Iran the #1 state sponsor of terrorism, because they took the money they make and they invest it in tunnels, and they invested in missiles, and they invested in launchers and UAVs, and we are destroying and degrading that in historic proportions. But it doesn't mean they won't still have some and try to hold people at issue, which is why we're fighting every single day to continue to compel. And you mentioned embassies and consulates. Unlike previous administrations, we are doubling and tripling down on ensuring that our people, regardless of their Department of War, Department of State, whatever they do, are secure in those facilities. And the best defense is a good offense. And so we're not afraid to go after and kill anybody, and we have a lot of them attempting to target our diplomatic facilities. Iran, we're not surprised that they would indiscriminately target, and we're still seeing that. Jerry.
So the assistant manager to the assistant manager of the Department of Defense argues that Iran prioritizes weapons and missiles over improving life for its people, framing it as a core problem with the regime. Okay. Just as a reminder, This is what the president said just last night.
Money for daycare because the United States can't take care of daycare. That has to be up to a state. We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. You got to let a state take care of daycare, and they should pay for it too. They should pay. They have to raise their taxes, but they should pay for it. And we could lower our taxes a little bit to them to make up. But it's not possible for us to take care of daycare.
So, exactly, Dano. Maybe we shouldn't be fighting wars. So if you want to criticize the Iranian government for investing in their defense and investing in missiles and whatever else, okay. Are you looking in the mirror, though, Pete? I know, Pete, you spend a lot of time in front of the mirror. I know, because you put your little green room, your little makeup room right next to the press office that you come out with your finely tailored suit and your coiffed hair, you know, in your Banaka. Anybody, Gen Z knows, or Gen X knows what I'm talking about. Your Banaka blast to cover the smell of the vodka shots you did before walking out, right? You guys remember Banaka? Isn't it Banaka? Yeah, it's Banaka, right? Exactly. You want to criticize the Iranian government for investing in their military and their defense. Meanwhile here we have $1 trillion budget and you want more, and the president says we can't afford childcare. That's a fucking ironic flex there, Pete. Totally fine though. Nothing to see here. All right. Well, I have another little bit of a little sound bite for you that I think was interesting from yesterday. This is from the presser, the fucking statement he made last night, and then I had something that it reminded me of. So I'll just play this for you.
Of the world that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They must cherish it. They must grab it and cherish it. They can do it easily.
They must grab it and cherish it. They must take care of it, and it kind of gave me this vibe a little bit.
I always wanted my own little bunny rabbit. I will name him George, and I will hug him and pet him and squeeze him.
That's kind of the vibe that I got a little bit when the president said what he said about how other countries in the world have to love it and cuddle it and cozy it and call it George.
World that do receive oil through the Hormuz Strait must take care of that passage. They must cherish it. They must grab it and cherish it. They can do it easily. We will be helpful, but they should take the lead in protecting the oil that they so desperately depend on. So to those countries that can't get fuel, many of which refused to get involved in the decapitation of Iran, we had to do it ourselves. I have a suggestion. Number one, buy oil from the United States of America. We have plenty. We have so much. And number two, build up some delayed courage.
First of all, my guy, it doesn't fucking work like that. It doesn't work like that. You don't just get to pull up to the fucking pump. Okay?
Should have done it before, should have done it with us, as we asked. Go to the strait and just take it, protect it.
Got it.
Use it for yourselves.
Take it, protect it, and...
Always wanted my own little bunny rabbit. I will name him George, and I will hug him and pet him and squeeze him.
That's the message to the rest of the world, right? Keep in mind, right, like we talked about with Obi before, if the plan was, well, Iran signaled through their own diplomacy and through their own foreign policy, listen, you go after our fucking shit. You go after our shit. We are gonna muck up the gears of the global supply of oil. Because we know what's the number, 25% of all the world's oil comes through that strait. Okay? We know that. And they said, listen, you do this, we're going to make it really difficult. We're going to inflict pain on you. So instead of having a coalition formed in advance, it's a big word for MAGA, coalition, a group of people with the same plans. If you didn't have a group of people with the same plans in advance, now you're blaming allies? our NATO partners and our partners in the Gulf and partners around the world are like, you fucking did this shit, dude. You're the one that made this fucking mess. Why should we come to your aid? You fucked this up. You just went in there with no fucking plan, and here you sit, and domestic gas prices are likely going to hit $5 a gallon on average. That's the reporting. There's talk about the oil, the per barrel oil cost of around $200, right? Exactly, Kim. He poked the fucking bear. He's the one that did it. It's not us. He's the one that did it. He created this himself. Self-inflicted bullshit at the expense of the American people, because apparently we can't afford childcare. We can't afford health care. So Congress talking about cutting more funding from health care. We're already paying. We already lost the ACA. We already lost the Obama, the COVID era tax subsidies. It's killing me every month. Does anybody have an extra $1,000 that they can fork over to cover their healthcare costs? It is fucking killing me every month. I have no choice but to do it. It's not about me. It's about us. Here we sit. Here we sit. We're just going to continue to feed the fucking machine? And the Pete Hegseth wants to criticize other countries for saying, well, if they didn't spend their money on defense, they would have all these things. You could look in the fucking mirror, Pete, and say, well, if we didn't spend all this money on defense, we could have these things too. We went to the breakdown. That was just half of the defense budget. We could insure 20 plus million Americans who currently don't do it. Don't forget, that's costs. I've gone through this exercise with you guys before. The majority of costs that we feel in our healthcare system is because the amount of people that we have that are underinsured or uninsured. I cannot afford my healthcare. Okay? That's how it works. I figure it out every fucking month. Every fucking month I figure it out. That's what we do around. That's what we do. That's what I've raised my kids. We'll figure this shit out. Somehow it works out. Sometimes, some months it's fucking crazy. Some months like, yeah, who's going to get paid late? That's America. That's how it works. But Congress can appropriate an additional $200 billion to support what? To support what? What is it that we're supporting? I'd like to know. Where's the American First model? Where is the protection to the middle class that we were promised? Where? So again, I mentioned this yesterday. We're up here talking about solutions for people. That's what Do Something's about. That's what the majority of people that I know on the left, creators that I really respect, are talking about these kinds of things every single day. You know, Attorney Dye breaking down what this court ruling means and how it would apply and how it would hurt, right? Exactly, succubus. Everything's 2 weeks away. And the impact on maternal health care deserts and how children are still starving in our country. And we're up here fucking talking about it every day. And we're fighting for people who we disagree with. I get, you know, it's been limited lately, but I used to get 10 to 15 death threats a week. Some of them really graphic. I'm like, wow, this could be a really good horror movie if that were to happen. You know, but I want those people to have health care, in particular mental health care. So we're up here talking about these topics. They're important to me. I know they're important to you. And then when you troll the streets, when you go around into right-wing spaces, you see people that have backgrounds like this. Like, Trump is showing these clowns how it's done. What are you doing? I know, and then they'll accuse us of the grift. So, grift away, friends. Grift away. Light up my gift box. Donate. Grift away. This is what we're talking about. This is the fight that we're having. And we're the ones that are accused of being radical. We're the ones being accused of having TDS. We're the ones that are accused of being anti-American. What the fuck is that? Trump is showing these clowns how it's done. I call this shit out. I usually don't want to call it other creators, but I'm so fucking tired of the bullshit. Of the fucking bullshit. It's the same thing every day. It's the same fucking thing. So that leaves us in a really weird spot, right? When we have to come back, when we have to do this every single day, and I love doing it. This show is incredibly important to me. Sometimes I feel like, God, man, am I discouraging people because of what's at stake? Then I'm reminded, no. Because I get to use my privilege every single day and try to remind people what's important. which again comes back to the Do Something tour. It's not just about the tour though, it's about doing something in your neighborhood. Volunteering in your community. Can you coach a youth sports team? Can you volunteer in school? Can you make sandwiches? I talk about some of the littlest things. Next time you're in, Costco or you're in Walmart or you're in Target or whatever it might be, pick up an extra case of socks and menstrual products. And if you're driving by a shelter or a houseless shelter or whatever it might be, drop them off. Because I can guarantee you, having worked with many of them over the years, those are two highly sought after items. Socks and menstrual products. Put them in your car. Leave them there. If you're walking out of the house in the morning, make an extra sandwich in case you find somebody who's houseless, and make their lives better. Those are little things that you can all do. So let's focus on some of the shit that should matter and not just the trolling bullshit that is right-wing TikTok these days. Okay? So yeah, quarters for laundry, good call. If you can put a roll of quarters in your car, and you might be at a laundry facility, or if you're in line at the grocery store and it looks like somebody's struggling, if you have the means, offer to pay. It's these little things, because I can tell you the difference that makes on somebody's lives, because we don't ever want to be there. But if we are, knowing someone has got our back in that moment, that's important. That's bottled water, granola bar, small things, exactly, BK. That's why we do this. That's why. That's why we're going to call it out every single day for as long as I can do this. Hand hygiene, body hygiene, bottles of water, yep, chocolate bars, things like that. Little things matter the most. They really, really do. They really, really do. Good morning, Kim. Maybe, maybe not. Look like you might have timed out, Kim. Okay. Another little bit of controversy that's kind of been bubbling. It's probably gone a little bit underreported. I'm going to play another little soundbite from the president.
The short-term
this wasn't what I was expecting him to say, but let me see if I can find it. Oh, first, we're speaking of the military-industrial complex. I would like you to hear this reporting regarding Don Jr. He's been busy investing in companies who benefit from the most recent war.
Doing great right now. In fact, according to the legal watchdog, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, you'll know them as CREW, quote, two companies which added Donald Trump Jr. to their board or advisory boards subsequently received benefits from his father's administration, and a third company that added him to their board may stand to benefit from a new Trump health care program. Don Jr.'s venture capital firm, which is called 1789 Capital, also backed a rare earth magnet maker, which then received a $620 million federal loan from the Department of Defense, according to CNBC. This past week, House Republicans blocked a Democratic effort to subpoena Don Jr. over these investments amid scrutiny of the Trump's family business ties. Imagine that. Democrats in Congress wanted to call Don Jr. in to try and figure out how it is that him being on these boards gets the company one of the biggest loans that the Defense Department has ever had. And Republicans say, not so much. We're not interested in this discussion. At a conference in Miami this past week, Donald Trump Jr. denied any wrongdoing, saying, quote, they want to go after me, not the people who basically spent 50 years making us dependent on China. I mean, who's the criminal here?
Yeah.
End quote.
So here's the timeline. Rare earth magnet startup backed by Donald Trump Jr. just landed a $620 million contract from the U.S. Department of Defense. House Democrats tried to subpoena him over the timing. Republicans blocked it. Then they walked out. Let's walk through that timeline, shall we? August the 25th, 1789 Capital, the venture firm where Donald Trump Jr. is named a partner, buys an equity stake in Vulcan Elements, a North Carolina-based rare earth magnet startup. November of 2025, the Trump administration's Defense Department hands Vulcan Elements a $620 million loan, the single largest loan ever issued by the Pentagon's Office of Strategic Capital. The Commerce Department throws in another $50 million in the CHIPS Act equity. Total taxpayer tab, $670 million. No competitive bidding, no independent technical review. President Trump's own executive order waived those requirements. Rep. Maxine Dexter, a Democrat from Oregon, motions to subpoena Donald Trump Jr. to explain why his firm's stake grew substantially right after the largest Pentagon loan in history landed in his company's lap. Republicans on the subcommittee, led by Chair Paul Gosar, who's RTP's favorite, immediately recessed the hearing for an hour. Then they voted 5-2 to table the subpoena. Then Rep. Lauren Boebert moved to adjourn the entire hearing. Done. Shut down, swept under the rug. Here's the part that stings. For 2 years, Republicans spent millions investigating Hunter Biden. Chairman James Comer declared that a president's participation in enriching his family is, in a word, abuse of the highest order. His firm says he wasn't involved. The company says he wasn't involved. The administration says he wasn't involved, but nobody will testify under oath to prove it. Here's the question. If Republicans spent 2 years demanding accountability for a president's son and then blocked a subpoena for this president's son before walking out of the room, what exactly were they investigating in the first place? Nepotism in politics, sure, we can talk about it. But what the fuck is this? Seriously. So there was an executive order that talked about these things that the president waived specifically for this transaction. But Hunter Biden and his artwork, or Hunter's cock on full display in the halls of Congress, and Hunter's cock could use its own hearing. Anyway, we talk about this level of corruption. It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter to conservatives. It doesn't matter to MAGA. This is blatant fucking corruption right in our face. Enriching Donald Trump Jr. within weeks of him being named a board member? Come on. Come on. And yet Hunter selling artwork? And because Hunter used his dad's name? Sure. Of course you would. Of course you would. But again, nothing to see here, right? Of course not. Nothing at all to see here. Of course you drop your... It's not what you know, it's who you know. Of course. Hi, Heather.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going. How are you?
I'm good. I just had this little thought. It's interesting to me that whenever the government needs money for war or any other thing, the first things they always cut are social programs, healthcare, and education. When there is so much other pork out there that they could cut. But they always go for the jugular.
Correct. Yep.
Without fail.
Because they don't care. They care about enriching themselves. They don't care about healthcare. They don't care about feeding people. They don't care about housing people. They don't care about clothing people. They care about enriching themselves. Fact.
Yep. It's just the blatant greed just makes me sick. Makes me sick.
Agreed. Thanks for jumping in today. I appreciate you as always. Have a good day. Be safe out there.
You too.
Thank you. Want to shout out real quick to hello puppy dog. I want to thank you to Tracy, Do Something Tour. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you and your mods. We appreciate you too, Tracy. Thank you very, very much. Also, thank you to Lori. Lori says, thank you for all you do. Thank you, Lori. I appreciate you very, very much. Linda, thank you very much. You're very kind. Thank you. So Do Something Tour to help out to get over to the 10K mark. We're working on it. Thank you very much, Linda. I appreciate that very, very much. Actually, we can adjust this right now. Let's do this. We're getting there. We are getting there. Be a big accomplishment. So, we always try to have a little bit of fun around here, add a little bit of levity, because levity and joy is resistant at the end of the day. So I turn to Jon Stewart and I turn to Stephen Colbert a lot, just because I like the way in which they navigate through this hellscape. So here is Stephen Colbert.
It was a big night on all the broadcast networks. Donald Trump at 9 o'clock gave a national primetime address. It was concise, intelligent, and brought the nation together with shared purpose. April Fools. Trump is way ahead of you. Way ahead of you, Chief. Trump gave his, it was tonight, he gave a speech tonight on the first night of Passover. So whether you're Jewish or not, I recommend having had 4 glasses of wine. Now,
at least 4, 5, 6,
I haven't seen
7.
the speech yet. One, because we actually taped the show a little before 6 o'clock. Also because I put lamb's blood around my TV so the speech would pass me by.
It's kind of true, though, right? It's kind of true. So let it be written, so let it be done. All right. So it cracks me up. I got to find this soundbite because this is an interesting story that I think has been really kind of going undercovered. There's a bit of reporting about how they've not been able to connect the dots to the bullet found that air-conditioned Charlie Kirk to the gun found on Tyler Robinson. So this is the story. Let me first play for you some sound, a bit of a sound bite, because you're going to hear Erica Kirk first. All right. And to play the sound, I have to have the image from the video. This is the image from the video that I'm about to play for you. Okay. Because Erica's a shitty actress, but I'm just going to play it. It's 1 minute and 26 seconds. I'm just going to play this for you, and then we can talk about it on the other side. Here you go.
My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men, just like the one who took his life. Young man. On the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man, that young man, I forgive him.
And then, of course, she gets a standing ovation, right? Of course, she gets a rousing standing ovation. So there's been lots of conspiracy theories, and I am not a conspiracy theorist. I just kind of look for patterns, and I sort of look for sort of behaviors. But there's been reporting coming out about numerous reporting. Attorneys for the man accused of shooting conservative activist Charlie Kirk said a federal law enforcement agency did not connect the bullet found during the autopsy to the suspected murder weapon. Tyler Robinson has been charged with aggravated murder and other felonies in Kirk's death. Kirk, 31, was unalive September 10th of last year while speaking to students at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. Authorities had said the gun used to assassinate Kirk was a Mauser 98, a common bolt-action rifle typically used for hunting. The hunting rifle, which had a heavier .30-06 caliber, dates back decades as a German-made military surplus with millions produced and resold in the U.S., experts told USA Today. Officials recovered the weapon near the scene of the shooting with 1 spent cartridge in the chamber and 3 unfired bullets erected with meme-influenced messages. Robinson's attorney said in a court filing that they have received a summary report from the Bureau from ATF, which indicates that the ATF was unable to identify the bullet recovered at the autopsy to the rifle allegedly tied to Mr. Robinson. Quote, although the state has not indicated an intent to produce this report at preliminary hearings, the defense may very well decide to offer the testimony of the ATF firearm analyst as exculpatory evidence, the court filing said. Robinson's attorney said the FBI is conducting a second comparative bullet analysis and a bullet lead analysis, bullet lead analysis, but it was not yet complete. The defense asked Judge Tony Graff to delay the preliminary hearing scheduled for May, in part because the team has not gotten the case files and protocols related to these analysis and other evidence from prosecutors. The defense did, however, receive a hard drive with more than 600,000 files in a meeting March 12th with prosecutors, according to the court filing. That came on top of 20,000 files the defense team had already received, which included 31 hours of audio and more than 700 hours of video. So Erica forgives him. It's good to know. As someone who has hunted in their life, a bolt action rifle like that, 30-06, 308, it's a pretty high velocity and does significant damage. And the weapon that they claimed used with the bullet that they claim was used would have done exactly. It makes big holes, is the point. So if you want to follow Candace Owens down that rabbit hole and others, I would suggest that would be a good thread for you to pull on. But Erica forgives him, just so you know. It's a weird story. There is all kinds of connections. There's been audio about whether or not she was a recruiter for JE. There's all the stories about, Kirk's criticism of the Israeli government. There was connections to Mossad. All these fucking things. It's like, it's hard to keep it all straight. We do the best we can. That's all I can say. Anyway. Somebody talks about the mic exploding. It's hard to say. Silent K, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Steve. How are you? By the way, your nails are fantastic as always.
Thank you. What's on your mind?
So I just wanted to, I'm actually glad you brought up JE's name, because I was going to say, with all this talk about the war in Iran and all this stuff that Trump has started up, why are we still not talking about the Epstein files?
We've been talking about it, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's kind of fallen off of the radar from everybody else in the entire media sphere, it feels like. So, yeah, that's mainly what I came on to say, is like we still need to harp on this because of the fact that we have a person who is accused of pedophilia running the military and running the executive office, the highest office in the land.
Correct. To your point, 104 days that the Trump administration and the DOJ with Pam Bondi smack dab in the middle of it, violating federal law by not following the details of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. It's 104 days. But apparently the Law and Order Party is all about law and order.
Yeah.
Said no one ever.
Exactly about law and order, except for the fact, except for when it comes to going and committing war crimes overseas. But
correct. There's that. Yeah, that's a good point. Intentionally targeting civilian infrastructures are war crimes. In case MAGA didn't understand that, those are actual war crimes.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time, as always. Love your show.
You got it, man. Thank you, bro. Take care. Again, we talk about it often here. I check every single day if there's nothing new. The only thing that we know to be new would be the anticipation of Pam Bondi's testimony, as we described earlier. She's not necessarily in the good graces of the president. We know that as a matter of fact. In fact, I want to go back a little bit, and speaking of Erica Kirk, I think this little soundbite is interesting because of the circumstances connected to her, and a very interesting statement that the president said about losing people that are closest to him. So here's some sound on, and he's referencing Erica specifically. Here you go.
Many, many years, and much of it has to do with a very good friend of mine, who a person that he loves so much is sitting right here. Charlie Kirk loved that woman right there. And he was so great. He was so great. I have people turn on me a lot. You do too. We all have people that turn. I think a really big turn would be Erica. If Erica said, I'm not with Trump anymore. That would be a big turn, but I don't expect it. Turning point, but I don't expect it. I love that whole group. And the kids are good, right? Are they? Yeah. But she's doing a good job.
Whew, wow. That's interesting. So once again, it's about fucking loyalty. I don't know what I would do if she turned on me. Okay. All right. I want to get into this story about Spotify because I think it's interesting. So as a music aficionado, as someone who respects artists and the whole nine yards, talk about the digital download industry, and there's pros and cons. But I'm going to read through the story for you. In 1999, artists kept 63% of every. This speaks to the picture of capitalism. This speaks to the people who are enriching themselves on the back of others. In this case, it's millionaires being taken advantage of by billionaires. I'm not defending the millionaires. I'm defending artists because I think they're the ones that are being taken advantage of. If you are an artist and you put your career and your life on the line to follow your love, to follow your career, to follow whatever that path is, then I respect that and you should be paid for it. That's what I think we would all agree. In 1999, artists kept 63% of every dollar their music made. Spotify pays 3 cents per stream, actually 0.3% per stream today. The music didn't get worse, the math did. Here's what happened. In the CD era, an artist made $3 to $4 on every $15 album sold. One great... Hey, stop it. No, come here. No. Here, go chew on something. Not me, though. Thank you. In the CD era, an artist made $3 to $4 on every $15 album sold. One great album could fund a career for years. That math forced artists to care deeply about every single track. You couldn't hide a weak song in the middle. People paid for the whole thing. Streaming flipped that model completely. A song needs 1,000 streams today to earn $3. To make a $50,000 salary, an artist needs 17 million streams per year. Stop it. Okay? Thank you. The incentive shifted overnight from making something lasting to making something that gets clicked again and again. Labels responded to the new math logically. They stopped funding albums designed to age well and started funding songs engineered to hook you in the first 3 seconds. Verses got shorter. Choruses arrived faster. Bridges disappeared. The architecture of a song was demolished to survive an algorithm. Spotify's algorithm rewards replays, not depth. A challenging song that grows on you over 10 listens loses to a simple hook that gets added to 400 playlists instantly. Artists aren't making worse music because talent declined. They're making shorter, simpler music because the platform punishes patience and rewards impulse. The albums you remember from the 90s and the early 2000s were built to last because they had to earn your $15 up front. Every song had a reason to exist. Today, an artist earns that same $15 after 5,000 streams. The nostalgia you feel for old music is real. You're mourning a financial model, not a golden age of talent. And I think about that. So when I worked in radio, for people who know, there's a genre, all right, they call it pop or top 40, and then there was what's called AOR, which would be album oriented rock. The idea behind AOR is that you could play deep cuts. Like you would play, the albums weren't produced for a hit, right? The albums were produced because the artists invested in the entire album. That is why Led Zeppelin is the greatest band of all time. Fight me. Because every song on every album is part of the construction of the album. So when I worked for AOR stations, there's also CHR stations, which is contemporary hit radio, or pop stations, or whatever they might be. People bought the album. Not only did you buy the album because of the amazing artwork. I mean, I've got albums up in my office. That's what I've got. I've got posters with album covers on it. Not only was the album great to have, but you'd take the plastic off, you'd pull out the vinyl, that fucking smell, you'd unfold it, and maybe you clean your weed on it. It was all part of the same fucking deal, right? So the music industry has fallen victim to the same cycle that we're in now. Short, digestible, quick, right? And artists are the ones who suffer. And then you get this fight with Ticketmaster and how they've just been gouging pricing. It's just ridiculous. And to be honest, I'm really glad, I think it was Josh Hawley and Elizabeth Warren who teamed up in the Senate to say, we have to go after this bullshit because this is just fucking predatory because it excludes so many people. Who the fuck can afford $500 to go see a concert? So those of you who grew up in the Northeast, growing up in Southern Vermont, there's this place called SPAC. It's a Saratoga Performing Arts Center in Saratoga, New York, which was, I grew up in the Bennington area, which was like an hour. We would go over there all the time, no matter who was playing. We would go all the time. We'd pay $8 and we'd sit on the lawn. It was the best. That's why I'm so fortunate. I've seen so many artists in my life. I've seen hundreds of concerts. Not only at that time in my life, but working in radio, working in TV, traveling the country. It was $8. It was $8. And you can't do that anymore. I remember taking my kids to concerts when they were little, but then I was noting the price jumps. I say this because it relates to exactly what we talk about every single day. Who gets to benefit from these things in life? When stadiums are being built now, stadiums are being built on taxpayer dollars, right? You think about these new massive stadium complexes that are built in communities. They're always sold on how much it's going to benefit the community. It doesn't. It benefits the people who have the money to go to these concerts. Check out season tickets for your favorite team. How can anybody afford that? No. My team currently sucks at the moment, but I'll go there. They win the first game, then they lose 5 straight. So I'll digress for a second. My mood oftentimes in the summer can be impacted by how well the Red Sox are doing or how shitty they're doing. And right now they're doing fucking shitty. And as a typical Red Sox fan, I'm already convinced they'll never win another game. So anyway, this model is again about predatory capitalism. So these stadium owners, right? They're getting the community to pay for it through tax subsidies. They're getting taxpayer dollars to invest in the infrastructure to support the stadium. Their taxes go up, and the owners of the team don't pay a fucking cent, and they reap the benefits. It's the reason why a lot of these sports franchises are worth billions of dollars. As a sports fan, I'll watch. It's something I enjoy in my life. But nobody can go to the games. If you look at the Super Bowl, when they pan the crowd, do you think that's for you and me? Fuck no. So we have to watch it on TV. Yeah, exactly. Ask Detroit, Michigan, right? Or ask any new stadium project. This thing with artists, though, you think about some of the songs you hear. We always joke about country music. Like, I'm not a fan of modern country. There's a few artists that I like. Like, I like Chris Stapleton. I like a few others. I'm a classic country guy, like a country western, that particular style, whether it be Waylon Jennings or Willie, that group of people. But oftentimes, country songs are written like Red Solo Cup. That song was written to be downloaded. That's it. And I always joke about, what do you get when you play a country song backwards? You get your truck back, you get your trailer back, and you get out of jail. My point is, they're not investing in artists anymore. They're investing in hits. They're investing in clicks. They're investing in downloads. And that's part of the economic model that I wish we could change, because it infiltrates everywhere, right? It infiltrates everywhere. And, maybe consider how you consume your music. Would it kill you to go and pick up the album? Maybe. Maybe pick up the CD. Do they even make them anymore? Probably. I've got a ton of them around here. There's a great music venue in New Hampshire, Bank of America Pavilion, I think it's called. Maybe. I've seen a whole bunch of shows there. I saw Robert Plant and Alison Krauss there last year, along with Bob Dylan and the Outlaws, a music tour with Willie Nelson's son. Fabulous. But tickets were like $200. And it's just one. I don't mean to be riffing on this, but I think it talks about exactly the things that we're talking about around here. Our country is not set up to provide access to things that we should all be able to share. And to me, music is one of those places. There was a lot of violence growing up in my house when I was a kid, and I would escape. I'd put my headphones on, those big, gigantic, oversized headphones, and I'd listen to Led Zeppelin, and I'd listen to the Stones, and I'd listen to Pink Floyd, and that got me through. And I think the approach now to selling hits, I appreciate songwriters. I appreciate singer-songwriters in particular. I appreciate people who work hard and invest in their craft and do all the things necessary to make it, whether you're busking on the street, whether you got a can out in your busy metropolitan area and you're trying to raise money. I love that fucking shit. But why is it that it's the entitled, and it's those that have and those that have not, basically. So I thought that story was interesting. Again, from the albums you remember from the 90s and early 2000s were built to last because they had to earn your $15 up front. Now, artists earn $15 after 5,000 streams. Look, old man, I'm 60. I've got a huge vinyl. Cool. I've got a massive vinyl collection myself, but are we measuring vinyl? I didn't know we were doing that. Anyway, I digress. All right. A few more things that I wanted to kind of get to today before we wrap. And I might wrap a little bit early today, but we'll see. There's this soundbite that I meant to play for you guys last week that I forgot about. It involves Chip Roy on a, I don't know, hot mic moment, but somebody leaked this Zoom call that they were on because Chip Roy has been an advocate for the SAVE Act. As we know, friends, the SAVE Act is not going to pass. But I find it interesting that Chip Roy, who's been a proponent for it, had this to say about what it might mean for people.
It's critically important. The problem we have is we've got some folks out there that are trying to stir the pot on this, allegation that it somehow is a barrier for married women to be able to vote because they've, got to deal with getting IDs with name changes and all those things. Although, frankly, I'm trying not to elevate the issue too much. My chief of staff had to go get a new ID in Virginia. Virginia's adopted the real ID system. So she had to go through a bunch of hoops. She's going to have to go back to the DMV twice because they want the paperwork for it. That's just part of the issue with how we try to set up the ability to identify people. But there's no barriers at all to married women being able to vote.
He just explained a barrier. You just explained it, Chip. Exactly, Atropos. Exactly. That was literally a fucking barrier, my guy. You just described it. And I don't want to elevate it. Like, I hope nobody's watching, but this is my chief of staff had to go through this exercise, had to go through this process because it's not exactly as we've been telling the American public. It's what's in the fucking bill. Somebody brought up yesterday, who changed their name, a stage name. Somebody who brought up people I worked with in the entertainment industry change their names all the time. Where did they change their name? What state did they change their name in? Do they remember what state they changed their name in? Where can they get a copy of this record that shows their legal name change? What about a person who's running from domestic violence? What about a person who's in witness protection? What about all these kinds of factors? This is the thing that they don't talk about. But no. It's only to ensure that our elections are safe and secure. Got nothing to do with voter suppression. Of course not. Of course not. Okay, do I have this? Let me just check in here, see if there's anything breaking that I need to address. Okay. Thank you, Jess. Okay, this is from, this is a bit of breaking news. We have a sounder for that. Apparently, as we discussed earlier this morning, apparently the president has informed Pam Bondi that her time as AG is nearing an end multiple sources report. A formal announcement hasn't yet come, aka all the normal caveats that he could change his mind apply. He's been speaking with advisors on a possible replacement in recent days, as others have reported this week, and Bondi is aware of that as well. I hate it when I'm right. I really hate it when I'm right. The timing is applicable because like we just discussed. Damn it, Jess. Yeah, he just hasn't gotten the post out there yet. I'm all distracted now. Sorry. Focus. Namaste. Namaste right here. The timing is interesting because of the fact that she is going to be testifying, scheduled to testify on the 14th of April. That's 2 weeks. And I can pretty much guarantee you that one of two things will happen. She'll either delay for some reason or she'll be out of her job. And my bet is she's losing her job. That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay. I have a couple more things I want to play for you guys. That's wild. God damn. Let's see if I have it here. Stuart Stevens and that group, our friend Legend, and friends, in case you're just joining us, our friend Legend Gregory, who makes all of our backgrounds for us, veteran, father, girl dad, father of a special needs kid, amazing fucking human being, found out this morning that he's a grandpa. His grandchild born, happy, healthy, everybody's doing well. So hearts in the chat for Legend because he's Peepaw now. Okay, I've got this for you guys. This is becoming a popular trend around here. I don't want to overplay it, but we're going to do it because it's fun. Hang on.
These are MAGA's words of wisdom.
Jordan Klepper out of the road with the good liars.
Should win the Nobel Peace Prize?
Yes.
You think he should win the Nobel Peace Prize?
Yeah.
What do you think about the war with Iran?
Bomb the shit out of them and get out.
And do you think Donald Trump should win the Nobel Peace Prize?
Yes, I do.
Do they not understand what peace means? So bomb the shit out of them and then get out and then give him the Nobel Peace Prize? Okay, I guess that's fine. I have one more in that same vein for you. Jesus. I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh, but here's another one for you. Here's another one for you. Here's another one.
So this is to bring peace in the area. When this gets taken care of, it's going to be peace. And I believe, I'm on True Social. That's the only social media I do. And I believe that he's going to have.
So first of all, the only social media that she does is True Social. Okay.
Bring peace, and it's going to be very short. And he's got a plan. He's a genius. And we trust President Trump. All of us trust President Trump.
What?
These are MAGA's words of wisdom.
You know what I'm going to say next, guys? You know what I'm going to say next? These people vote. Okay? They vote. By the way, our friend Brooke, Cabin Mom, got an appearance on the Necessary Conversation, that podcast. And congrats to you, friend. I'm working on that too. I'm so glad you were there. But we talk about, like, they could do sound bites because they just mainline fucking Newsmax all day, every day. That's their entire fucking game. To mainline fucking Newsmax. I oftentimes will go to these alternative news sources just to see what's happening. Fox, there's some relatively intelligent people there, right? They know they're lying to people. They know they're lying. They know that they're there to get viewers. They know that they're there to get advertisers. They know it. They fully know it. I mean, Jesse Waters is not stupid, okay? Newsmax, those people are fucking nuts. They are drinking every possible concoction of fucking Kool-Aid imaginable. So that is, I don't even know what you would call it. It's a combination of, it's like a proper information, disinformation. It's like this entire fucking like cesspool of lies and deceit and deception. And I'm watching it, I'm thinking, holy fuck, I completely understand why someone would fall victim to it, right? This person, the only social media that she consumes is Truth Social. That's it. As far as we know, from what she tells us. This is what she said again.
He is a president of peace. So this is to bring peace in the area. When this gets taken care of, it's going to be peace. And it's, well, I believe, I'm on Truth Social. That's the only social media I do. And I believe that he's going to have, bring peace, and it's going to be very short. And he's got a plan. He's a genius. And we trust President Trump. All of us trust President Trump.
That's so painful. It's so painful. And it's a lot of those people will be the ones who are in line to vote. And that tracks, because I'm going to play some sound from Sean Ryan, his podcast. Don't forget, we've already identified the president has lost Tucker. He's now lost Joe Rogan, because Joe Rogan thinks that MAGA is a bunch of fucking dorks. Alex Jones, Ben Shapiro, Nick Fuentes, the whole fucking litany of them have jumped ship. Sean Ryan now as well. So he is now calling out the MAGA conspiracies and contradictions and bullshit over the war in Iran.
Here's what they said on the campaign trail. Trump advisor Stephen Miller on X. Liz Cheney is Kamala's top advisor. Liz wants to invade the whole Middle East. Kamala equals World War III. Trump equals peace. Tulsi Gabbard, October 28, 2024. A vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for Dick Cheney and a vote for war. War and more war. A vote for Donald Trump is a vote to end wars, not start them. Miller also wrote, Kamala will send your sons to war. J.D. Vance, 2023, on the Wall Street Journal. Trump's best foreign policy? Not starting any wars. He has my support because I know he won't recklessly send Americans to fight wars overseas. The Republican National Committee.
Sorry. Let me go back to that. Apologies. I'll start from the beginning. Interesting. My apologies about that. Hold on. I hit the wrong button. Don't even go there. Don't you dare go there. I know how to push the button, okay?
Liz wants to invade the whole Middle East. Kamala equals World War III. Trump equals peace. Tulsi Gabbard, October 28, 2024. A vote for Kamala Harris is a vote for Dick Cheney and a vote for war. War and more war. A vote for Donald Trump is a vote to end wars, not start them. Miller also wrote, Kamala will send your sons to war. J.D. Vance, 2023, on the Wall Street Journal. Trump's best foreign policy? Not starting any wars. He has my support because I know he won't recklessly send Americans to fight wars overseas. The Republican National Committee promoted Trump Vance is the pro-peace ticket. Trump on October 30th, 2024. They're all war hawks when they're sitting in Washington in a nice building saying, in quote, oh gee, let's send 10,000 troops right into the mouth of the enemy. Pete Hegseth, December 2025 speech. Our department will not be distracted by democracy-building interventionism, undefined wars, and regime change. Every single one of these things is a complete lie.
Don't forget, during the Biden administration, Trump said, this president is going to drive us into war because he doesn't know how to negotiate. Well,
here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are.
The entire world is worried that we're going to go into World War III here.
For good reason.
So there's that, right? The litany of fucking lies told. What about Biden? The litany of fucking lies told. And Brooke brings up a good point. So that woman, the sound that we played from him being a genius, that person last night on TV is this genius? Okay. And then I think to wrap today's show, I think I'm going to play for you guys a little bit of sound from, this is from Tim Miller, Sandstein, JVL, and Mark Hartling reacting to Trump's Iran address. I'll just play some of it. Probably won't cover the entire thing, but I'll just play this part for you guys.
Before you've done anything else, and when you don't put the military force into action with a required end state. We don't know what we're doing other than bombing things. Something has gotten into his head thinking that we can get into and out of wars using air power alone with some special operators every once in a while to snatch and grab people or to create regime change. That's not how it works. And it gets back to just a simple understanding. If you're going to wear the title of commander in chief, you sort of need a little bit of information about what the military does and how they do it. And you don't put two Marine MEUs of 2,500 Marines apiece and an airborne brigade in an area the size 3 times of Iraq and expect to overcome the country and to do great things and take over a strait that's a major choke point in the world. It takes a lot of people to do that, and it's really, really hard when you've got an enemy that gets a vote.
Can I bring up a question about
jail Trump-elect Mark Hartling was a comment I saw come across the screen there, and I don't hate that as the solution.
I hate it a lot.
I want to bring up something. I'm going to go to JVL on this one first. There was a newsworthy bit of omission in this speech. Okay, for the past
quite a few of
hours,
those actually.
24. Well, the most news I think last 24 hours we've been told that Trump is going to use this speech to talk about NATO and how angry he is at NATO and how he wants to get the U.S. out of NATO. Unless I missed it, he did not mention NATO. He did talk in the abstract about allies needing to take the oil, but he didn't mention NATO. Now, earlier in the day, he was at some prayer event for Easter, and he said this. So this is just the preface for you guys. This was leaked or posted by the White House accidentally, then ripped it off the website. But let's play that comment he made about NATO earlier in the day, and then I'm curious to JVL, why did he not mention it tonight? First, the speech.
And so I learned about NATO. NATO won't be there if we ever have the big one. You know what I mean by the big one. We ever have the big one, hopefully we won't. Relationships very good with the big one, better than with NATO. But they won't be there. And we spend billions. You know, we didn't have to go into Ukraine. Ukraine's thousands of miles away across the ocean. We helped them.
We didn't go into Ukraine,
we had a president who's a stupid individual.
Is the big one China or Russia? Who's he talking about?
Not totally sure what the big one is. Anyways, that's the preface for the speech. We all expected him. You, me, and Mark were talking about this. We thought he was going to go off on NATO.
Yeah.
He didn't. Why?
Forgot?
I'm sorry. A commenter said Brian is the big one. Sorry.
It was the thing I thought he was really going to go. I thought he was going to go after it for a couple of reasons and go after NATO. All the reasons he would have presented would have been wrong. And it just amazed me that all he said basically was they didn't help us out. And he used the they versus NATO didn't help us out, which surprised me. But, truthfully, it doesn't matter because I'm not sure NATO wants us anymore if we continue that. It's interesting. I had a conversation with someone in Europe the other day, and they said, for the first term of his administration and for part of the first year, we were feeling sorry for you guys and, because you had this guy leading you. But now you're all with him. Nothing's changing and he's still doing crazy stuff. So we don't blame him alone anymore. We're blaming all of you, which I found to be an interesting dynamic from someone in the Nordic region that has a lot of influence.
My serious answer to your question, Sam, is that I think that the previous clip answered your question. Like, I think that they feel like they covered the FU NATO bit with the good luck opening the strait. I think that it was more about kind of that, because he makes that sly, he thinks it's sly, I guess, comment about like, you guys could show some courage. You haven't showed courage yet, but better late than never. And I think that was kind of the deal. Also, maybe he didn't realize that Mark Rutte was coming to town next week.
I think it's interesting to hear perspective because these are smart guys. I'm a big fan of Sam Stein. I love Tim Miller. The argument here is that the president, when I talk about this, my own opinion, I talk about this in terms of how every time the president makes a foreign policy move, from my perspective, it's in deference to Russia because they're the ones that benefit. Who benefits from NATO dissolving? That's Russia. Who benefits from the United States taking Greenland? That would be Russia. Who benefits from Russian sanctions being lifted? Russia does. I mean, this entire thing. So this saber rattling regarding NATO. First of all, the president alone cannot pull us out of NATO. It's going to require Congress to do that. We obviously know that there are rules and restrictions and all kinds of other shit happening. But when he talks about NATO, especially because he's Taco, he goes back and forth on the same fucking bullshit. It's disturbing. Apparently there is only posted in a non-verifiable source. Okay. Somebody said, I saw somebody make a comment apparently that the Bidens were in a plane crash, but it does not look like there's anything verifiable that we can confirm. Seems like it was posted back in December of last year. Nothing verifiable that we can confirm yet. We've not seen anything come across our ticker friends. So that would be an example of why we are always cautious and we pause before making comments about things like that. So there you go. Anyway, the whole argument with leaving NATO just shows once again that our president has no idea what the fuck he's doing, and that speech last night proved it. So we're going to wrap there today, friends. I got a little bit of capitalism I need to do. I want to thank everybody for being here. Come back tomorrow for Free Speech Friday. Really, really appreciate you guys hanging with us. Mods, I love you guys. We're going to, let's raid Ash today. Tell her that we said hello. Anybody you want to rash? I know Santana's live, Johnny's live, Olive is live, Ash is live, Emma's live. Please tell everybody that we sent them, that we'd love to talk to you guys. Appreciate you guys very much for being here. We'll be back tomorrow morning for Free Speech Friday, 8 o'clock. Remember, friends, there is always something to do. You have priorities that you need to focus on in your life, making sure that your family's happy, making sure that your family's healthy. Ash Advocates or Ash Live or Ash Men's, I'm not even sure what her live, I think it's Ash Goes Live or something like that. She's been a guest in the show. You've seen her before. Anyway, Free Speech Friday, come on back. Legend, congratulations to you again, my friend. I appreciate you very, very, very much. You guys are awesome. If you do want to support the Do Something Tour, you can find the links in my bio, at Factsstillmatter, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. Don't forget about supporting your favorite creators. Make sure that you're gifting them. Make sure that you're helping push their lives out to the algorithm. We support each other because we got a big fight.